times before. Kyle Larson has never won at this racetrack, and neither has Chevrolet. We'll see if that statistic changes tonight. Green flag is in the air. We're racing in Kentucky. Three wide as they go into turn number one. Jeff Gordon moving to the inside, trying to take second away from Kyle Larson. He's way down at the bottom of the racetrack, as is Joey Logano following behind them. Gordon moves up to second. Larson, your race leader.
We talked so much about how the drivers were nervous, but it didn't take them long to try three wide. Denny Hamlin was way on the top. You see Martin Truex trying to open up the top. It's a good sign when the racetrack opens up. That means all night long there's going to be a lot of different grooves.
So Kyle Larson, as we're three wide going into turn number 3, was the pole winner. Started on the outside of row 1, dropped all the way back to third. Brad Keselowski was able to get by him, as was the 24 of Jeff Gordon. Brad Keselowski so good at this racetrack. The race leader out front, Jeff Gordon running second. Larson, Jimmy Johnson, Martin Truex Jr., all in the top 5. As the cars running around each other, a different feel than what they were able to experience in practice. Just over 2 hours of practice on this new race setup.
Yeah, the learning curve is going to have to be quick. These crew chiefs are needing feedback. They're anticipating what these cars are going to do all weekend long. They're playing that game now of how long do I want to wait before I start asking my drivers questions. We need to let the air pressure come up in the tires and let the drivers get settled in. But these crew chiefs are already looking for feedback to start working on their car.
Martin Truex Jr. to the inside of Jimmy Johnson, trying to take that position away. Jimmy Johnson hard on the gas on the outside, doesn't want to give it up. Side by side as they cross the stripe, Jimmy Johnson with the advantage, Joey Logano behind him. There will be a competition caution at lap 25, around lap 25. NASCAR wants to give these teams an opportunity to take a look at the tire wear.
And as you go into turn 3 side by side, this is the first time they've been on this racetrack with the sun out. They have not seen any sun the whole time we've been here. They have to be careful in making those adjustments, understanding that turn 3 is probably slicker now than it's going to be.
Marty.
And you got to wonder if that's playing an effect on the handling, Jeff, that you just mentioned the weather a little bit different than it's been all weekend long. Martin Truex used 3 varies in describing his tight, saying very, very, very tight right now. Car not handling well for the 78, going backwards currently.
Another car going backwards, the 3 of Austin Dillon. He's dropped almost 9 spots back into the 19th position. They stay side by side for Joey Logano in the 22 on the inside, Martin Truex Jr. on the outside. Kyle Larson, who started up front, has fallen back to the 3rd spot, Dave.
Rick, similar to Marty's report, the car of the 42 of Kyle Larson is tight, as is the 3 of Austin Dillon. So a lot of cars right now experiencing that condition where they cannot turn the wheel the way they want to.
It doesn't surprise me that some of these cars are missing it tight, because if you see here the 78 and the 22 are a heck of a battle. They've been side by side for a couple laps. The 78's prevailing on the top. You know, as a crew chief, in our minds, if we miss it tight, the driver will at least have an opportunity, while not to make speed, to probably keep the tires and car underneath him. If you miss it too loose, we've all heard about the lack of downforce. As a crew chief, I would have been scared that my driver would have a catastrophic problem, spin out, perhaps get in the wall.
24 of Jeff Gordon already talking about tires early on as we see a big wiggle out of Martin Truex Jr. Here's what the 24 had to say on their rating.
It doesn't matter how much I slow down the 3 of them. The chatter in the front's bad. Step forward, push that as far as you can.
You heard him talking about the tires chattering. What he's feeling, he's got the wheel in his hand, obviously, and the tires are actually skipping across the racetrack. It's very difficult to understand what makes a tire chatter, but it's actually hopping across the racetrack. He can feel, and even sometimes you almost can hear that as well. It's very, very difficult to deal with. You cannot make the car turn. Every time it chatters and hops, it makes it worse to turn every single time it does it. You can see right here, he's driving the car. He's driving into turn 1. He's got wheel input into it. Rarely does he turn the wheel back to the right. That's what a tight car looks like. Goes into turn 3. Just put steady wheel into it. With this low drag setup, low downforce setup, I think you're going to want to see more wheel movement than that. I think that little bit of wheel movement is showing that the car is tight.
And Gordon still trying to keep up with Brad Keselowski. 2.2 seconds behind the leader, driver of that number 2. Brad Keselowski so good at this racetrack. After 10 laps, Brad Keselowski continuing to dominate at Kentucky. He's got 2 Cup wins already, 3 Xfinity wins, and trying to add another jukebox to the trophy collection. A guy going the wrong direction, though, is Dale Earnhardt Jr.
Yeah, Dale Jr.'s lost 7 spots since they dropped the green flag. We're only on lap 16. Watch him get in the corner right here. See the big wiggle? Then he has to keep chasing it, keep chasing it. That is loose. He cannot keep the wheel to the left like we saw Jeff Gordon. He's got to crank it back to the right. He's losing tons of speed. Mike, you got something on Junior?
Yeah, you know, he just radioed in and he said, I quote, "I can't believe how bad this thing is." He just has no front grip right now. They were all over the place in setup during practice. They ended up on the tight side, but right now the handling is very much not to his liking, and he is struggling and hoping that the track comes to him as the sun begins to set. He's not the only one with problems, however. Matt Kenseth also radioing in, thinking he may have an alternator issue. He's shut everything off, powered things down, then powered back up, and it appears that maybe that corrected the situation, but we'll have to stay tuned on that. This thing is far from over, obviously, Jeff.
No, it is. It's a long ways from over, and that would be a concern if you lost the alternator.
Crashed in the middle of 2, 3, and 4. 2 cars got together.
Car up to 3, and it looks as though it's a 98 of Josh Wise. A lot of damage to the right side of that car. Josh was running 41st, was not on the lead lap. Will Kimmel, making his first ever Sprint Cup start, will receive the free pass. Here's what happened with the 98.
See 98 get in the corner on the outside. The 23 on the bottom just lost the back of the car of Yaley, got into the 98. Both of them went up the racetrack. The 98 ran out of racetrack, gets into the wall. Big impact, a lot of damage.
Can that be a product of the new race package and how close these two are running? Maybe getting the air off of the 23 spoiler?
No question. That, you know, it's a lot less downforce. They're not used to this. They went into the corner very, very close together. So, yes, I think that was a factor.
We're before lap 25. This won't be the competition caution. If teams want to come onto pit road, they can change tires, make adjustments, but they can't add fuel until lap 25. We're seeing some look, but not take the opportunity. Very few have decided to come onto pit road. So we'll take a quick break and be right back as we reset from Kentucky. Welcome back to Kentucky Speedway and the Quaker State 400 presented by Advanced Auto Parts. Tonight's aerial coverage provided by our partners at Smithfield Foods. You can get the ultimate pass to every moment of every NASCAR Sprint Cup Series race with Race Buddy. Choose from multiple HD feeds of different drivers. Follow the race action with a live leaderboard. Tune in at NASCAR.com/Race Buddy. The 88 has been on pit road. Mike Massaro.
Yeah, and they're trying to give him a little better handling race car, Rick. As we told you moments ago, he was struggling with front grip and just was not happy with it at all. They made several adjustments, including wedge, air pressure, 4 tires, and fuel. And they're hoping this makes it just a little bit better because it hasn't been to his liking at all so far.
And I like Greg Ives' theory. He knows he has a competition yellow at lap 30, just 8 laps away. While he can't put fuel in, you have to get your car better. Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s been fighting the handling. He almost crashed one time we saw in a replay. They need to come in, make major adjustments, and get ahead of the track now. You just can't keep chasing it all night.
As you mentioned, NASCAR has extended this hopefully green flag run until lap 30. They had mentioned that it was going to be around lap 25. We're going to go till 30 for the competition caution. Brad Keselowski chose the outside line. Jeff Gordon on the inside. And we're back to racing at Kentucky. as they go down to the apron, trying to get an advantage. It's Jimmy Johnson in the 48s. Went all the way down to the apron. You can race on the apron here at Kentucky. Probably not the preferred line. 3 wide now as they go into turn number 3. Joey Logano on the inside. Jeff Gordon trying to hold his position right in the middle of the track. And Kyle Busch using that outside line and the momentum to take third away, and now fighting for second.
Kyle Busch restarted 7th. He's coming around after 1 lap, and he's running second.
Kyle Busch so good on restarts, taking advantage of that high line. And he has taken second away from Joey Logano. Jeff Gordon, who restarted second, has dropped all the way back to 4th, and now losing that spot to Kyle Larson in the 42.
We saw him out there running earlier all by himself, and he was complaining about his car, but he was able to hold position. Now that he's in traffic, it's going to be harder to hold that position because the dirtier air you get in, even with this shorter spoiler, it's still hard to make your car handle as well as when you are in clean air.
Is there a preferred line here at Kentucky, Jeff?
They're everywhere. I think it depends on...
A little contact there. Jeff Gordon's going to move Kyle Larson out of the way.
That was an old school move right there. Get up to him, get the air off the back of his spoiler. That's something we haven't seen with the tall spoiler prior to this race. That's what the drivers are hoping you would be able to do. Get to somebody, get the air off of him, and take that position.
Yeah, with the taller spoilers, the drivers complained that a car length or 2 away, you would just lose total grip. The 24 there was able to get all the way to the 42's bumper, kind of break through that pocket, get close enough for the air to affect the 42. If we see that and continue to see that, a faster car is going to have more tools in the toolbox to overtake a car in front of him.
Does a veteran have advantage over some of the younger drivers that don't have as much experience with these cars when that happened, just like we saw with a veteran and Jeff Gordon?
I think they do. I think just having that experience helps you. Watch a 24. He's underneath the 42. He hadn't touched him. He just got the air off of him. Never touched him. That was all air. And that's what these drivers have talked about. Give us a tool. Give us something to work with. If we're behind a guy, we got to have something that makes us better than the guy in front of us so we can pass. That's a great example of low downforce.
Yeah, you talk about young and veteran drivers. Well, Kyle Larson is more of a veteran driver right now because that was a lesson learned from the 4-time champ Jeff Gordon.
And he probably thinks he hit him. You know, he probably thinks he got into me, but he didn't touch him. That's just Jeff Gordon remembering how to do this.
Side by side. Now it's Sam Hornish Jr. working to the inside, trying to take the position away from Austin Dillon. Completely different lines. We saw Casey Kane almost out of the groove and in the light gray. And now here comes Carl Edwards with the minions on board, trying to get by Eric Almirola in the 43.
Carl's been moving forward. He's up to 7th. There's David Reagan at 55 behind him.
Yeah, you see David Reagan right here. He's gained 12 spots since the restart. He was one of the first cars that decided to come down pit road underneath that caution. Even though they couldn't take fuel, they put 4 fresh tires on this car. And you see, as he runs the bottom of the racetrack, how good those tires are working. He's able to run lower, straighter off the corner, but still get the power down as he passes the 43 and charges right to the bumper of the 19.
Eric Almirola with the momentum on the high side as we're into lap 31. We know NASCAR has told the competitors they will be throwing the competition caution around lap 30. We're anticipating that. David Reagan in the 55 has cleared the 19 of Carl Edwards. As a crew chief, when this competition caution comes out, and it has now, what do you learn from these tires? What are you going to hear from your tire specialist that's going to make you adjust these cars a different way?
Well, the first thing you're going to have to decide is how many tires you're going to put on. We saw in the Xfinity race last night, 2 tires won that race. Now, these cars have much more power, much less downforce, so they're sliding around more. So the tires I do take off, I'm going to look physically at the tire. There are small little indentions in the tire, and that's how you check the tread depth. Even though it's not tread like your street car at home, it's a smooth, slick tire, there's still a way to measure how much of that rubber's still on. I'm going to look at that, see how much rubber's worn away. You kind of have an idea that you can graph out for a longer run which tire's working, which tires aren't, and when you need to come in and get tires.
So, Steve, David Reagan has moved up to 12th. He came in and put on 4 tires. We know he's going to stop and put on fuel. is he going to do any tires?
Well, I think he's going to have to take 8 or 9 seconds worth of fuel, maybe 7 or 8 seconds worth of fuel. So I would put right side tires on regardless. If you're going to sit in your pit stall for 7 seconds, you can change right side tires in 6 seconds. You might as well put them on while you're there. It's just efficient pit work.
So he tried to gain track position by putting on 4 and have a shorter pit stop on pit road this time to see if he can gain track position after these pit stops.
Using strategy early as we're under our competition caution. It's the second caution of the night. Brad Keselowski is going to lead the field onto pit road. Kelly.
Jeff Gordon makes his way down in the 24 car, just saying he will not rotate. He can't pick up the throttle like he needs to. They're going to make an adjustment on that 24 to try to help him out, as well as an air adjustment. He's going to go 2 tires only, right sides only for Jeff Gordon, Marty.
Kyle Busch, top right hand of your screen, went from 7th to 2nd as we saw in the first restart of the day. It's going to be 4 tires for Kyle Busch, and the car was a little bit loose into 3 for Brad Keselowski. It's 4 tires as well. A very small wedge, but that's it for car barely loose, Dave.
Right side Goodyear tires for Joey Logano. Gets close to the 11 exiting. Sunoco fuel in. His car was just a little loose into turn 3.
Pretty impressive pit stop for the 18 team of Kyle Busch. Grabs 1 spot, and he will be the race leader when the green flag comes back out at Kentucky Speedway. Denny Hamlin, Joey Logano.
Well, he had been running inside the top 10. He came in to get 4 fresh Goodyear tires and an adjustment, but they didn't get the lugs all the way tight on that left front, so Jamie Mack made a second trip down pit lane and now back in the pack.
Kyle Busch came off of pit road first, so he will lead the field to the green flag. He actually took 2 tires on pit road. That was what enabled him to get off the pit road so quickly. His teammate Denny Hamlin will start on the inside. Brad Keselowski, not such a good stop. 4 tire change, and he will restart in 12th. Field all in line behind Busch and Hamlin. Green flag back in the air. The preferred restart point is the outside line. Kyle Busch, an amazing restart. Denny Hamlin holds on to 2nd. Kyle Larson has made his way back up to 3rd. Joey Logano fighting for that 4th position. Already this season, 11 different winners. Kyle Busch one of those, but he has to break into the top 30 in points to be eligible for the chase, to be one of the 16 drivers that will fight for a championship. So we see the 48 of Jimmy Johnson looking to the inside of Joey Logano. Martin Truex Jr. in the 78. Talked to that team earlier today. They said anytime they have these left side tires, this package where these left side tires are on the car, they can't get a good grasp on the race package.
A lot of times that's just driver feel. The driver doesn't like the way the tire feels, the way it grips the racetrack. Every tire, the construction of the tire makes a difference on how the driver feels it. So he just does not like this construction of the tire.
And he's going the right direction, though. Martin Truex Jr. is past the 48 of Jimmy Johnson. Brad Keselowski with 4 fresh tires, trying to work his way back up toward the front.
That's the car I'm watching on the racetrack right now. We've talked all weekend long about this reduced downforce package, how it's going to run in traffic. Brad Keselowski has a great race car, as we see his teammate here with the 22 of Joey Logano makes a move on the 42 of Kyle Larson. Both of these Penske cars look strong. We have the 22 here working on right side tires, as well as the 42 of Kyle Larson. We're back a few cars behind them. The 2 of Brad Keselowski, he had been dominating the first half of this race. His crew chief Paul Wolfe decides to take 4 tires. I want to see how easy it is to go back up through traffic. Marty?
Well, and Steve, the car's been excellent for Brad Keselowski tonight. In fact, when we thought we were going to pit at lap 19, Paul Wolfe asked Brad, you want any change? He said, oh no, this thing's awfully good. He hasn't touched the track bar all evening long, and the car barely a little bit loose, so they made that quarter round of wedge change on the car. But last night in the Xfinity Series race, Steve, we saw these 4 tires. It took about 30 laps, but they eventually did pay off in that race. We're going to have to watch the early test here to see how they're going to pay off tonight.
You're absolutely right, Marty. Last night it took about 30 laps, but a big difference is the horsepower and the downforce. These Sprint Cup cars with 75 more horsepower than their Xfinity cars, as they accelerate out of this corner, that is putting more power through those rear tires, asking them to do more work, perhaps wearing them out, losing grip quicker.
Here comes Matt Kenseth looking at the inside of the 48 of Jimmy Johnson. Kenseth able to get up to the back bumper of the 48, and then he loses ground. 2 car lengths back as we see the momentum switching to the 2 of Brad Keselowski. He'll look to the inside. A big wobble by Matt Kenseth, and Keselowski gets to his inside. Keselowski had momentum, got up behind the 20. 20 wobbled just as the 48 is. A very rough track. We can't overlook the fact that this is a rough track for these drivers.
No question. This track is rough. It's very difficult. Low downforce. You're bouncing all around. It just makes everything harder.
Jimmy Johnson hanging on to that spot as now the 2 of Brad Keselowski has been able to get back by Matt Kenseth. Here comes Martin Truex Jr. Look at the inside of Kyle Larson. This is for 4th. Martin Truex Jr. taking the low line. Kyle Larson trying to keep the momentum up on the high side. Up the racetrack, Martin goes to complete the pass. Martin Truex Jr. up to 4th. Kyle Busch, a 1.2 second lead over Denny Hamlin. The 2 Toyota Camrys trying to check out on the field. Joey Logano running 3rd in a Ford. And then the top Chevrolets, Truex Jr., Kyle Larson, and Jimmy Johnson.
We saw these three guys racing a little while ago. You saw the 20 of Matt Kenseth get really loose. The 2 was right underneath him. That made him loose. But also the 48 being in front of him was taking air off of his car. So the 20 was not in a good position at all. He had downforce off the front. He had the tube taking downforce off the back. And he just had to chase the car off the racetrack and gave the spot up.
Do you see that as a driver as an opportunity where you can look at, as we see Matt Kenseth way up the racetrack, he still has a loose car, but as an opportunity where if you get behind someone that's riding behind another car, already the air is a little bit less on their car, and you try to take some of that air off to get by them?
No question. If you're the guy that's behind, if you're running 3rd and you're trying to catch a guy in 2nd, and you have nothing in your arsenal to beat him with, if the cars are equal, if you can have a little something by running up behind him and taking the air off of him, making him lose the line so you can take the preferred line, that's an advantage, and that's what this low downforce package is all about.
Those 4 fresh tires are working for the 2 of Brad Keselowski as he was able to get by Kyle Larson and takes over the 5th spot. Mike Massaro, what's going on with the 88 team?
Well, lots of things. He just radioed in not too long ago saying he's hearing a lot of things clunking underneath the racetrack. Feels like maybe the skirts are hitting the racetrack, perhaps the truck arm. But the bigger concern might be the brake system. Apparently, Dale Jr. forgot to turn on the brake fans at the beginning of the race and remembered a little bit into the run after feeling like the brakes weren't working as well. They were on now. They pulled a tape from the air duct on the last stop, but they're a little bit concerned. And Steve, how concerned should they be?
Well, I think there should be a big cause for concern. One big thing about this new package is with the less grip, these drivers are all using more brake going into the corner. They're carrying a tremendous amount of speed, but with the lack of downforce, they're having to use more brake. They pulled that tape off the nose. That is not what they want to do. The idea for that tape was to keep the brakes cool. Because he didn't have the fans on and they have to remove that tape, that's losing more front downforce. So that is definitely going to hinder their performance as the sun goes down late into the night.
Kyle Busch, the race leader, 1.7 second lead over Denny Hamlin. Back in the 11th spot, Carl Edwards trying to take that spot away from Ryan Newman. 2.5 seconds over Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski's teammate. And Brad chose 4 tires and is moving his way through the field, Marty.
Rick, as we keep the tally of those 4 tires and how well they work, he restarted 12th, and he's up in 4th. You know, we were talking earlier this week with Brad Keselowski, and he said something interesting. He said he looked at the calendar, and it kind of shocked him that Kentucky is the final mile-and-a-half racetrack before the chase starts in September. Of course, the chase is comprised of mile-and-a-half racetracks, so you better be good at these mile-and-a-half racetracks. So his theory and Paul Wolf's theory, bring your best stuff to this race, show what you got, learn what you can, since it's your last shot before September. So, Steve, I'm wondering from you, is that the way you approach it as a crew chief? Use this as your last test before the chase at a mile-and-a-half.
Well, I think Paul and Brad might think of that because they have such a great history at Kentucky. You want to bring your best stuff to where you think you have the best chance to win. But when I look at the schedule from here to the chase as a crew chief, I'm looking at Indianapolis, Michigan, Darlington. Those are tracks, while they may not be mile-and-a-halves, you bring your high-speed intermediate cars. They're going to have multiple downforce packages at those 3 tracks. So there's still a lot to be learned, but I do understand what they mean. Bring your best stuff to the best track.
Brad was fastest, now second fastest. He was one of the cars that was on pit road to change 4 tires. A lot of the others only changed 2 tires, like Kyle Busch, who is leading.
I would like to think it's 4 tires, but even before, when everyone was on equal tires at the start of this race, Brad Keselowski has just had a tremendous amount of speed. Listen, they've had a tremendous amount of speed since the cars backed onto the liftgate at the beginning of the weekend. They have been the car everyone's talked about.
Yeah, that's right. And even though they haven't gained a lot of spots, I think the crew chiefs down there, they're always, whenever somebody puts on 4 or 2, everybody on pit road's watching them. Are they able to advance? Everybody knows this is a good car, so it's somebody they can really compare. They really understand if it's what they want to do on the next stop.
What I want to know is where he restarted. You know, I know he's only worked his way up to 3rd, but he restarted back in the 10th or 12th position. So he was all the way back in the 5th or 6th row. That's still a lot of cars he's passed.
Carl Edwards in the 9th position, getting by Kurt Busch. Now Kurt in the 41, working back by on the outside as they close in on the 42 of Kyle Larson.
And Rick, to answer Steve's question, it was 12th that Brad Keselowski started, so now 12th to 3rd for that 2-car, Steve.
Yeah, Marty, when I look at that, that's a +9. So now, as a crew chief, you have to decide if you get 4 tires, where are you going to restart? And if that crystal ball wouldn't have lied to me so many times over my career, I would have won more races, because I seem to always think, oh, we're going to come out of pit road 6th or 7th, and we end up coming off pit road 14th or 15th.
Kyle Larson seems to be going the wrong direction. The pack of 3 was able to get by him.
Well, something else you're looking at right here is a 23 of Yaley. He has just pitted a little while ago. He's on 4 tires, so he's driving by these really good race cars. Right there is an indication that 4 tires do matter. Dave, you got something on the 42?
He took 2 tires, Jeff, and so there you go. They did raise the track bar on the last stop, but he reported early on in this run that he was loose into the corner in the 42 and tight on the gas. So Larson struggling, and you see him going to the high line there. That's uncharacteristic, according to what crew chief Chris Heroy told me he had done all week in practice. He'd been in the bottom line, so now really searching to find where the 42 can get a fast lap.
Thanks, Dave. And Dave mentioned the track bar. Again, that's an adjustment that these drivers are able to make. So how much input is a driver giving to get the handling better, and how much is he leaning on a crew chief telling him how much to do?
So the driver comes on pit road, and you're getting ready to put tires on it. He has to make a determination. Do I want to raise this track bar or lower this track bar? Do I think I'm going to take off looser or tighter with new tires on? That's an adjustment he's making coming onto pit road. And then he learns. So when he takes off after the restart, if he's too loose, the next time he's going to get the track bar even lower. So it's a learning process. This was the first stop, first restart with these cars, with this downforce package. They really don't know what the car is going to do taking off. So he's learning. He's going to make a note of that and keep making changes of that all night long.
Rough track, Steve.
Yeah, when we talk about setups to race cars, we were just talking about the track bar where we're underneath the hood of the 35 of Cole Witt, looking at his right front tire. And if you look down at the bottom of your screen right there, that is the bottom of the shock. What you see is actually a smaller spring. That is a bump stop. When people think of bump stops, they think of rubber, they think of plastic. Well, a few years ago, NASCAR changed the rule where they were allowed to have a spring. So now at the bottom of the shock, at the bottom right here, you see this spring continue to be compressed as it goes around the racetrack. That isn't the only spring in the suspension. There's another bigger spring next to it. That's the bump stop they're running. At a rough racetrack, a spring on the shock makes all the sense in the world to me. It's what we found on all these race teams to give you the most grip when there's a lot of content, a lot of bouncing and shaking, and the tire wants to move like it does around Kentucky.
So the air is pushing down on the car, and the tire is giving it the give so that it doesn't slam into the racetrack.
Yeah, and the biggest problem is the air pushes the car down at these speeds with such great force that when you hit a bump, the tire jams up into the wheel well. All of that right front suspension needs to control that tire.
Cole Witt running a lap down in the 35th position. Kyle Busch, the race leader, has a 3.6-second lead over Brad Keselowski. Welcome back to NASCAR Sprint Cup Series racing from Kentucky Speedway, presented by KFC. 69 laps complete. Let's see how the Toyota drivers are doing in tonight's race. Joe Gibbs Racing, very strong. Top 8 for all 4 of their drivers. David Reagan running in that 13th position. Let's go through the field, brought to you by Carl's Jr. Marty Snyder.
Guess who's up front and through the field? Kyle Busch, a familiar position for him here at Kentucky. He said, you know, this place is so tricky and challenging. A lot of drivers don't like it. I love it. You can see why. He said right now the car losing a little bit of grip, and late in the exit, it rolls over on the right rear and gets a little bit loose. Dave?
Marty, Denny Hamlin is running up front. He believes he might have a right front tire going down. He's already dropped back to the 8th position, and his crew has told him, if you gotta come, you gotta come. So Denny Hamlin in trouble right now. You see him there on the bottom of the track, Rick.
Denny's making his way onto pit road. Unscheduled pit stop for the 11. He's running up in the top 8, Denny Hamlin. In a tough pit road to get to in green flag conditions, he was able to do it flawlessly as he goes 45 miles an hour down pit road to the attention of his crew.
Yeah, I mean, that's an act of a veteran driver. When you have a problem like a low tire, he thinks he has a right front tire going down. Don't make the problem worse. Get the pit road clean, get in the box. Dave?
And coming off the car is a tattered right front tire, and that was what Denny felt in the car. As soon as he felt it, he told the crew, and they said, there's nothing we can do. You got to come. 4 tires changed, then he's gone.
And that was a disaster averted there for Denny Hamlin with the tire going down, and he felt it. Now let's go back through the field. We go back to Marty.
And Rick, Brad Keselowski trying to close in on Kyle Busch, one of the fastest cars on the racetrack. For the first time all day, he's messed with a track bar. He lowered it just a little bit. Car a little too free getting in. Hard to believe the way they're running. They've had just one top 5 in the last 10 races, Dave.
Brad Keselowski's crew chief Todd Gordon told me yesterday, I really wish that the rainout had happened for the final practice because we were so good and dialed in. It didn't happen, and they're still dialed in, Marty.
Martin Truex Jr. off of those 2 tires on the last stop in the 4th position right now. Car a little bit too tight in the center, and it's loose off, especially off of turn 4. This race team bringing the car this weekend that led the most laps at Kansas, Charlotte, and Dover. Hoping for the same today, Mike.
Matt Kenseth had an initial alternator problem at the beginning of this race. He's been keeping a close eye on the voltmeter. As for the handling of the race car, he's saying he needs more rear grip, and he can't be any more tight than he is in the center. Meanwhile, right behind him, Kevin Harvick, he's dealing with a tight condition as well, also looking for rear grip. Kentucky's one of the only tracks he hasn't won at. Would love to put that on his resume today, Kelly.
Carl Edwards has won here in both the truck and the Xfinity Series. He was a big proponent of this new low downforce rules package, and we can see why he is comfortable in the 19 car all the way up to 7th after starting 20th, Marty.
Kelly, Kurt Busch right behind him. The car's still a little bit too loose for Kurt Busch. And Tony Gibson, his crew chief, very smart. He said, listen, this is the time of the night where the track starts to change. Please keep me on my toes with that. I want to know how that track is changing. He's also running that high line, as you can see, Mike.
Jimmy Johnson damaged the right rear quarter panel in practice, but Jack Canal said that was not an issue coming into the race. So far, though, the car's been very loose. They took right sides only on the last stop, but the car hasn't been any better on this run. Dave?
Kyle Larson was very fast in this race last year, but they had a tire problem with the car. Nothing so far on that for the 42, which is great news. But he's been battling the handling of the race car, dropping back in the pack for a car that is tight on throttle. Marty?
Dave, how about this run for David Reagan? He had his best finish in the 55 car last week at Daytona when he finished 12th. Right now, he's running 11th. Remember, they took those 2 tires on that last stop. And by the way, all these teams should be pitting in about 12 laps, Kelly.
Jeff Gordon's been going the wrong way since that last restart. He said he's got no front tires and he's plowing like crazy. And now his spotter's helping him try to adjust his line to match where the leader's running. He's back in 12th.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. has picked up 17 spots since the last restart. He's definitely on the move and likes the feel of his race car. As the track is changing, it seems to be coming to him. Busch?
Thank you, Mike. Kyle Busch, the race leader, has an 0.8 of a second lead over Brad Keselowski, Joey Logano, Martin Truex Jr., and Matt Kenseth, the top 5. Just outside of the top 15, Austin Dillon running in the 16th spot. Keeping our eye on him after an incredible crash from last week. The 11 of Denny Hamlin was on pit road for the right front tire, and then to add insult to injury, he was speeding on pit road, so he had to come back onto pit road for that penalty. Kyle Busch, the race leader in Kentucky.
Welcome back to the Kentucky Speedway under caution. Leaders coming to pit road. It's about to get frantic down here. Matt Kenseth has been looking for rear grip over the course of this run. His team is ready to go to work on the 20 machine. They're over the wall going to work on the right side. They'll also make an air pressure adjustment. 4-tire change as well for the 20, Marty.
Mike Kyle Busch, top left hand to your screen, said the car was loose in, tight in the middle, loose off. That's 80 laps on the left side tires, so they're definitely going to go 4 tires on that car. Brad Keselowski, top right of your screen, 4 tires for him as well. A little bit too free for Brad Keselowski. And Martin Truex Jr., bottom left of your screen, 4 tires as well, Dave.
Running third, Joey Logano needs more drive off 4. He'll get 4 Goodyear tires and a full load of Sunoco fuel as you see him exiting pit road, Rick.
Yeah, one of the bigger stories, I think, would have to be the 48 on pit road. They've got it jacked up. Looking at the rear end. What's going on, Mike?
Checking into that right now, Rick, as I make my way down pit road. But obviously you can see the 48 has a problem. Over the course of that last run, Jimmy was saying that the track bar, as it went up, the car got extremely free. Perhaps that's what they're looking at right now. It looks like they're going to make a change and add some cross weight and some. They're going to look at the right side Panhard bar, is what I was just told.
Jack up a little higher, Jack up a little higher.
You hear the calmness in Chad Knaus's voice. They do have to stay in front of the pack if they want to stay on the lead lap, and they're doing it. Welcome back to NASCAR Sprint Cup Series racing from Kentucky, presented by KFC. Caution coming out for the 27 of Paul Menard. He got into the wall. He was actually a lap down and was the first car has scored a lap down, so he doesn't receive the free pass because he was in that position. The 11 of Denny Hamlin has been on pit road a few times. Here's what he had to say about the tire issue.
Sorry about that, but you saved us, man. My car was coming apart. It'd have been a big bad day then.
And he was apologizing because he sped on pit road. They are now a lap down. Green flag back in the air. Will it be 4 wide as they go through 1 and 2? Carl Edwards up the racetrack. Kyle Larson trying to get by 4th position. Kyle Busch, Joey Logano. Racing down the back stretch. Kyle Busch in front of Logano. Keselowski running 3rd.
You see on new tires, the cars try to migrate to the middle and the bottom of the racetrack. It's once the tires get older that we see them all the way up the racetrack next to the wall.
And Steve, as a crew chief, we saw 4 tire changes for almost everyone on this last stop. Is that because of everyone complaining about being loose and seeing how 2 tires just weren't competing against 4 after the previous stop?
Well, I think more than anything, it was just the amount of laps we had on our tires. We were only 5 or 6 laps away from a green flag pit stop anyway. But if I'm a crew chief, I'm sending someone from my team down to that 11 pit. He had to pit for a tire coming apart. I want to know, did he run over something? Is there a mark where maybe it was rubbing the fender? There's a lot of things that can cause a tire to have problems. It can be a lot of random things, and I would like to know if it's something like that or something I need to be concerned about in my own car.
If I'm driving an 18 car, I'm trying to find a way to get some speed because the 2 of Keselowski, he's coming. He's getting ready to put a lot of pressure on him.
There's Carl Edwards looking to the inside of Kyle Larson. Edwards and the Minions 19. With the target 42 of Kyle Larson running up very high line.
And he's losing ground doing it right now because I think it's just too early in the run. When tires have grip, these guys are able to run a lane or 2 lower efficiently. They're not out of the gas. You're on board with Carl Edwards. You look back. Here the 42 moves to the bottom. Right now he's on the yellow line. Gaining ground on the 19 of Carl Edwards. I know the 42 may run better up against the wall, and that's what Kyle Larson likes to run, but as he runs these cars more and more and gains experience, he'll learn there are points in the run where you have to run down the racetrack. Even though the car doesn't feel better, it's going to run a faster lap time.
Carl Edwards right up against the 41 of Kurt Busch. Kurt Busch has to get out of the gas. That allows the 42 of Kyle Larson to get by. Very close between the 41 and the 19 coming out of turn 4. Kyle Busch has a mirror full of Brad Keselowski now. Brad Keselowski so good at this racetrack? What is it about tracks? The track that we're going to go to next week is a great one for you. Why is it so good for the two here?
I think drivers are just comfortable. They know what they need. They've had success there. Once you've had success, then you have an idea of what you need in your race car, so you can give that feedback to your crew chief.
And here he's on the back bumper of the 18. Brad Keselowski won last night in the Xfinity Series. Wants to sweep the weekend.
And I love the proximity the 2 is able to keep to the 18. We've talked and talked and talked about this less downforce package and how we're hoping to help the trailing car be at less of a disadvantage. Right here, he drives right up to the 18's bumper, turns underneath him, side by side off the corner.
Now let's see what he can do getting into 3. Now that he's next to him, the 18's not going to give him any room, I don't think, getting into 3 because he wants to take that air off his spoiler. The 2 is too quick, just drove right by him.
So strong is Brad Keselowski, but here comes the 18 of Kyle Busch. Fighting back on the outside, doesn't want to give the position up. As they come back to the stripe, the 18 is battled back. Kyle Busch led that lap by 8/1000th of a second. And that time, Brad Keselowski couldn't keep the speed up through 1 and 2.
Gotta love how hard Kyle Busch. I thought it was over. I thought the 2 of Keselowski was past Kyle Busch, but Kyle Busch fought back in the middle of the corner, was able to get in the gas and roll back around the 2.
And as these 2 are racing, who comes in the picture? But Brad Keselowski's teammate, the 22 of Joey Logano.
There have been 40 races here at Kentucky. And of those 40, 9 have been won by those 2 drivers. 25% of the races almost have been won between Kyle Busch and Brad Keselowski. Here comes Keselowski again.
You saw Keselowski. What he's doing, he's turning early. When you turn early, you pull the air off the car in front of you. That's an old trick. That's nothing new. It makes the 18 car just not be able to stay in the racetrack quite as well as it needs to. Is able to pull the pass off.
And that right there is the slide job. That's not a new trick either. As soon as you're clear of the car in front of you, slide up the racetrack, take his lane.
But that move early, we haven't been able to see that this year. You know, with the big spoiler, you just weren't able to manipulate the car in front of you. Now, you can, and that's the advantage these drivers have been looking for. Keselowski's a little faster than Kyle Busch, but in the past, Keselowski didn't think he could pass him. Today, he had a tool, was able to use it, and make the pass.
So the new race package working out for Brad Keselowski. He's won with the old package here. He has 2 Cup wins already at Kentucky of the 4 races that have been run, and looking for his 3rd win. Closing in on 100 laps of 267. Brad Keselowski trying to check out on the field. Here are the wins for Brad, as we mentioned, so much success here. He won the Xfinity race in 2011, and now we see Jeff Gordon, who has not won here at Kentucky, trying to make the pass on the 42 of Kyle Larson.
Well, these same 2 cars earlier in the race, we saw Jeff Gordon get right to the rear bumper of the 42, get him loose in the middle of the corner and get past him. This looks the same way it's take 2 this time, though. He gets a great run, gets inside Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson wants no part of it this time. He waves the 24 on by and says, you know what? You showed me earlier you knew how to get by me. I didn't like that big wiggle you caused. You go on by, I'm going to fall in behind you and see what I can learn following you.
So Jeff Gordon moves up to the 8th spot. Kyle Larson drops back to 9th as we see Carl Edwards making his way by the 4 of Kevin Harvick. Harvick's so dominant, as well as Jimmy Johnson on 1.5-mile tracks this year. And Kevin Harvick still trying to find some speed as we have an incident on the front stretch. The 41 of Kurt Busch.
All right, stop it.
Stopped just before the start-finish line. He was in the 10th position.
All right, roll straight.
Marty, was he talking on the radio about a problem with the car?
Hey, he didn't have a problem, but he just told Tony Gibson on the radio a moment ago, whatever changes you made on the last stop, please undo them on this next stop. I'm sliding sideways, entering, and I'm plowing off the corner. So he had a very ill-handling race car in that 41.
Listen, I know we might have some disappointed drivers or frustrated drivers out there sliding this new package around, but I'm loving it. When's the last time we've seen cars spin out on their own? These are the best drivers in the world driving stock cars. Kurt Busch, a multiple race winner, has so much talent. For him to spin out off turn 4, right here you see him underneath or behind the 42. Jeffy just gets loose.
Yeah, he just comes around on it. You know, he's trying to go as hard as he can. He's in the throttle. He's loose. We heard him talk about being tight leaving the corner, so he may have gotten up, and as he got close to the wall, he got tight. Then he had to, like, put a lot of wheel into it to keep from hitting the wall. Then the back end comes around. But to your point, we just haven't seen these things. And you know what's crazy? The drivers wanted this. The drivers wanted the cars to drive bad.
They might not tomorrow.
No, but it sounds crazy. But I think the advantage that they all feel like they can get, because every one of them thinks they're a better driver than the next. They want it to be difficult. Look at him with his wheel.
All right, stop it, stop it.
Kurt Busch around, but so calm behind the wheel as the field makes their way onto pit road. Mike.
And Kevin Harvick on pit road, going to work on the right side now. Two-tire change for Harvick. Quick stop, Kelly.
Jeff Gordon in the 24 saying that his car is loose in and real tight from the center and off. They're going to give him 2 right side tires, 2 rounds out of the right rear, Marty.
Kelly, David Reagan's been able to keep his car in the top 10 all day long. 2 tires on that stop for those guys. Going to lose a little track position here, but it's going to be interesting to see if these tires pay off for these guys, Rick.
Absolutely.
Yeah, decisions. Half the field pits, half the field stays out.
These speed charts. Nearly 178 miles per hour, the fastest lap by Brad Keselowski. Kyle Busch, Jeff Gordon, Denny Hamlin, and Jimmy Johnson all turning extremely fast laps here at Kentucky. We were listening into the 88 team moments ago to the communication between crew chief, driver, and spotter. Here's what they have to say.
It's real tight. We're turning real hard, though, up top, so I don't know what to do. I'm way freer, and I don't know that I got the track bar down 1.5 inches. I ain't been that low, so I don't know what to do.
That's the million-dollar question. So he's too tight down bottom, but too loose up top. That's why he doesn't know what to do.
Let's look back on how we got to this point in our race recap. Jeff Gordon making guys get out of his way.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of that. Jeff Gordon's been probably one of the best at it, running up behind somebody, taking air off the spoiler, taking the spot.
And you see the same thing here with the 2 of Brad Keselowski. Gets underneath the 20. Here the 17 of Ricky Stenhouse. A big wiggle underneath the 15.
Continued dynamic change for these teams.
And the 42 getting really loose with Kurt Busch behind. Of course, Kurt Busch getting up against the wall almost. Missed it. Spun out all by himself.
And that brought out the 4th caution of the night. We've completed 103 laps of our 267. And the 48 spent quite a bit of time on pit road, Mike.
Yeah, for the 2nd time in a row, we saw them put crossweight in and work on the Panhard bar recently. Well, this time down pit road, they took another big swing at it, put 2 rounds in the left rear and 2 out of the right rear. So obviously, Jimmy does not have the feel that he likes to have at 1.5-mile racetracks where he's been so dominant over his career.
Thank you, Mike. The top 7 stayed out on the racetrack. So Dale Earnhardt Jr. running in the 7th spot. We'll have Kevin Harvick on his outside starting 8th. And Kevin Harvick changed 4 tires. So that's going to make a big difference. Or 2 tires. So that's going to make a big difference for Kevin Harvick with 2 fresher tires.
Yeah, we're getting ready to see how old 17-lap right side tires compare to brand new right side tires right behind them.
Brad Keselowski on the outside. Kyle Busch on the inside. And the fans waving to the field as they get back underway. Keselowski able to clear Kyle Busch. And now Joey Logano to the inside of Martin Truex Jr. for 3rd. Carl Edwards in the 19, as you mentioned, a proponent of the changes to aerodynamics for these cars, and it's working out for him tonight.
He's been perhaps the loudest voice in the garage, wanting these cars to drive bad. He just feels like it'll make the racing better. He's taking advantage of it. See Harvick making a move underneath him.
Here comes Kevin Harvick all the way down to the yellow line. trying to get by the 19 of Carl Edwards.
He has those 2 fresh right side tires, and he knows if he has to gain on them, he has to gain on them now while the tires are fresh and he has grip. That's what's allowing him to run so competitive with his left front all the way down in the yellow line. That is not the preferred groove, but that's where the other guys aren't running. That's forcing him to go there.
I just love that. The 3 wide, 4, they're all over the racetrack. That is really fun to see. It's fun as a driver. When you go places to try to make a move on somebody, that's when the racing is really fun. See Jeff Gordon trying to make that move again underneath Larson. Larson's probably going to get tired of that at some point. He's going to try to return the favor, I would think.
Carl Edwards on the left side of the screen. Now it's Kevin Harvick over there. We see his hands.
Pretty tame, really. Nothing out of the unusual. Very calm hands. Tells me the car's handling really well. I suspect when we go back to this shot, if it goes green for 30, 40 laps, the hands aren't going to look that smooth. The car's going to drive the best it's ever going to drive right now.
That's why you would be a better race car driver than me, and you made a great career of it, because those hands, while they are calmer than some, they are still a little fidgety off the corner.
A little smoke coming out of the 35.
Looks like he has some damage on the left rear tire there, maybe rubbing the fender on the 35.
Smoking bad enough, they'll probably have to pit. If not, it's going to rub a hole in that tire.
And it was smoking considerably when they went even through the front stretch where the banking isn't as much, the load isn't as much on the car, and it continues to smoke as he went through 1 and 2 and even down the backstretch.
Such a difficult position for a driver to be in. You don't want to pit because you know if you pit, you can see this is the cam on the 30 on the car. You know if you pit, it's going to really hamper you. You don't know how bad the rub is. Right. You can smell it. Sometimes you can see the smoke, but you can always smell it. But it's very difficult to know how bad the rub is. Your spotter's got to be talking to you. He's kind of got to make this call right here.
The yellow lettering has been worn off of the inside or that left side tire.
Yeah, and you can see here on the left side of your screen, that orange glow you see right there are the headers. We're underneath the right front corner of the 35. This is underneath the hood of the 35 next to the right front tire. And right here on your screen, those orange tubes you see right there are the 2 right side headers out of the motor. You'll see as he goes down the straightaway, they grow brighter and brighter and brighter red. And then as he lifts off the gas, they're going to get cool off just a little bit right here. They're not going to be as bright anymore. And then as he picks up the gas and we go down the backstretch, right here, these tubes are going to continue to glow brighter and brighter and brighter. That is a tremendous amount of heat. That's what people have to understand. That's only 8 or 10 inches away from the right front tire.
So Cole Witt continuing to have a smoke issue out of the left rear. Brad Keselowski, the race leader. Kyle Busch, Joey Logano, Martin Truex Jr. and Kevin Harvick, the top 5. Carl Edwards, Matt Kenseth, Jeff Gordon, David Reagan, and Kyle Larson are in the top 10. Here's A.J. Allmendinger in the 47 on the inside of Greg Biffle. The Ortho 16 of Biffle running that high line. We see Kurt Busch in the 41 coming up behind this group. He brought out the most recent caution and stays on the lead lap. The 16 of Greg Biffle trying to stay in front of that 41. Marty?
And this is another interesting study here, Rick. Greg Biffle restarted 20th. He is up to 17th so far on that last stop. He took 4 tires, Greg Biffle did. They've also had a water temperature issue for much of this race. They had debris on the grill early on. The water temperature on that last run, 270 for Greg Biffle. Starting to cool down a little bit now, though. He's in a big battle there with Kurt Busch and the rest of those guys.
And Roush Fenway looking for a bright spot in the 2015 season.
And that can be so frustrating because as I talked to Matt Pucher a few weeks ago before we got into the Sonoma Daytona run, they felt like they had found just a little bit of speed in their car. And they moved from running in the mid-20s to the mid-teens. And you see here now with this new aero package at Kentucky, it seems like they have taken a step maybe backwards. Biffle is running inside the top 20, but the other 2 cars, 25th, 27th of Trevor Bayne and Ricky Stenhouse, overall as a company, they just seem to be lacking overall speed, and that is so hard to find, and it's even harder to find as these packages change.
The 11 of Denny Hamlin in the free pass position, a lap down, running 26, Dave.
He was battling Paul Menard for that position a little bit earlier, but now he has a good handle on that, and that's a good thing because Denny has a great race car, took the wave around on lap 83, and then said this. loves what's going on with this new downforce package, and he is back in this thing. He'll be the lucky dog if he stays where he is, and we'll be back on the lead lap, guys.
The reason he loves this package is because he's been able to drive up through some really good cars. He's been able to come from the back of the field, and now he's racing with the cars. You know, they're running really good fast lap times, running with cars, 16th, 15th, 17th position. So he feels like with this package, he's been able to manipulate his way through the race, to the field, and he doesn't feel like he could do that with those packages. That's why he was talking about he loves it.
Ryan Newman in the 31, trying to hold his position. Again, the 11 of Denny Hamlin scored a lap down, and he is running in the 26 lap sled tonight. Kyle Busch, 63 lap sled. That's one more than Brad Keselowski. Presented by Sprint. Follow Miss Sprint Cup on Twitter now for a chance to win an autographed hat from tonight's victory lane. Kyle Busch with a great pit stop back in front of the field at Kentucky. Kyle Busch leading at Kentucky. He's won here before. Kyle Busch won at Sonoma already this year, but is fighting to get into the top 30 in points right now as he's running on the racetrack, only 84 behind that 30th spot. Martin Truex Jr. to the inside. Green flag back in the air. Joe Logano moving to the bottom of the track, really trying to grab some positions after he crossed the start-finish line. Great restart for Kyle Busch. Martin Truex Jr. holding on to second. David Reagan in the 55 into the third spot. How about Kurt Busch? After spinning off turn 4, he's running fourth tonight. Joe Logano trying to get by Austin Dillon in the 3. Dillon way up the racetrack. We saw sparks coming out from underneath the 15, still waiting for the tire pressures to come up on this bumpy racetrack.
It's actually a little bit rougher on the bottom of the racetrack than it is in the middle of the racetrack as well. See the 42, he really lost their car right there, slid the whole car up, opened the door for Carl Edwards in the 19.
Kurt Busch was on his outside, took a little bit of the air away from the spoiler of the 42. He went up the track, got allowed the 19 of Carl Edwards to get by. Brad Keselowski, after a slow stop, they tried a 2-tire stop, the right side tires, and when Brad was trying to get out of his pit stall, he actually ran into his right front tire carrier, who stumbled. And even though the tire wasn't under control as he crossed the halfway part of the pit box, NASCAR did not penalize them because they said that the car hit the tire carrier, and so that was why the tire was not under control as it crossed the halfway point. Kevin Harvick to the inside of Casey Kane.
Clint Boyer in the 15 right in front of them. They used some strategy to gain this track position. Let's see if they can keep it. They've been pretty slow all night. 5-car Kane on the outside of him. The 4 cars going to try to go with him.
Logano trying to take the position away from Larson. That's the fight for 7. Logano takes it. The 2 of Brad Keselowski moving to the inside of Kurt Busch. Brad Keselowski continuing to work his way back to the front. Kelly, it sounds like there was something going on pit road with the 2014.
Yeah, the 24 has Jamie McMurray in the 1 car just ahead of him, and as Jamie was coming in to make his pit on that last stop, it sounds like he hit the jackman of the 24, John Giannato.
So we'll keep...
Sorry about that, but Jamie ran over a jackman. Is he all right? Yeah, I think so. John, you all right? Yeah, he's all right.
So good news there, obviously, that John Giannato is doing all right. And Jamie reporting, this is the best my car has felt all night.
And so now that's 2 drivers that have, or 2 crew members that have been hit on pit road by drivers either entering or exiting pit road. That's why they wear helmets when they go across that pit road wall. The 4 of Kevin Harvick coming up to the back bumper of the 42. And now Harvick able to get by Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson's so good in practice, at least the 2 hours that we had. He was fastest in the first practice and the second practice. And now in this race condition, not able to maintain that speed and that pace. Caution comes out once again. The 6th caution of the night.
I ain't got no brakes. I'm too loose also, but I can't slow it down.
You heard him say he can't get it slowed down.
What's happening with the 88, Mike?
Well, we documented the brake issue that Dale Earnhardt Jr. was encountering early in the race, and it just seems like it's gotten worse as the night has gone on. Not too long ago, he said the brake pedal was virtually at the floor. They were on pit road during the last caution. They were bleeding the right side brakes to see if that made it any better. And so far, we haven't heard anything over the radio, but it's obviously a pretty serious problem on that car.
Yeah, if at any point you get this brake fluid too hot, he reported earlier he forgot to turn his fans on, and you boil the brake fluid. It's a hydraulic system. That fluid's no good anymore, and the brakes are going to get really long, and the brakes are going to get really squishy.
Way up the racetrack is the 88.
You saw the right front rotor glowing. He was on the brakes. He just couldn't get it slowed down. Went up and got up into the wall. Now, listen, here's one thing, too. These teams have all lightened up their brake packages because of the old aero package, okay? They put smaller rotors. They put smaller calipers on their cars. Now that you have to use the brakes more, do you need to go back and put the old package on where you have bigger calipers and bigger rotors? That could be a factor. You could see he was on the brakes getting in the corner of the right front tire. You see the left front glowing. You see that glow right in the middle of the left front tire. Watch Dale Jr. get in the corner.
And that's what happens. The reason you saw one rotor glowing is if you have brake trouble, one, it may not be all the way around the car, but you need all 4 to stop. So if one rotor or one caliper is hot or has bad fluid in it, nothing is really going to stop the car. The other brakes have to do the work. That's why the right front tire of the 88 was glowing.
Kyle Larson, running 10th, made his way onto pit road. Never miss a race. Visit nas.cr/race calendar to download the official 2015 season schedule, get free race reminders, and find out all your local broadcast information. Dave Burns.
Rick Palmenard has a familiar voice in his ear tonight, but not the one, but from the spotter stand instead of talking to him face to face. It's Mike Dillon. Mike's son Austin, of course, surviving that horrendous crash at Daytona last week. There he is. He's spotting for Menard this week because Stevie Reeves, the normal spotter, is expecting the birth of a granddaughter and went home. Best line of the night, Dillon was having radio trouble. He said, I have a loose connection. And I promise you, it's not me.
And Mike Dillon is a really good spotter. He spotted for me some. He knows race and understands it. He used to drive, actually. He was a really good race car driver, so he is a good spotter to have as a backup.
Kyle Busch will restart on the outside. He has his lane choice for the restart as the race leader. Martin Truex Jr., Carl Edwards, David Reagan. Impressive run. Michael Waltrip Racing. Brad Keselowski, who has been dominant here, is up into the top 5 once again. Kurt Busch has bounced back. He's 6th. Logano, Kane, Harvick, and Kenseth, your top 10. Under the lights. Back under the green flag. They come out of turn number 2. Kurt Busch was on the high side now, all over the back bumper of Carl Edwards in the 19. Here comes the 2 of Brad Keselowski. Kyle Busch, Martin Truex Jr., Carl Edwards. Brad Keselowski working to the inside of the 41 of Kurt Busch. Keselowski up to 4th. Here comes his teammate Logano. Past the halfway point of the race, crew chief, have we decided that 4 tires on every stop is the way to go?
I'm not convinced at this point. You see here a good battle between the 78 and the 19 of Carl Edwards. I'm not convinced 4 tires is the way to go. I think you really have to understand how many cars are in the lead lap and how many laps to go. If this comes down to a run with under 20 or 25 laps to the finish, I'm going to do whatever I can do to get track position. If that means 2 tires, I'm putting 2 tires on
26. And a close call. But he's able to keep it straight, Jeff Burton. And it looks as though the 14 of Tony Stewart.
Bring it back. Bring it around. Good job.
Might have got into the inside wall. Back
Nowhere
behind
to go
the
there.
26.
They just packed it into you.
You heard him talk to Jeff. There's the 14 of Tony Stewart. Might be a donut on the driver's side of the 14. Looks like damage to the right side of that car, though. Anyway, you see a little smoke coming out of the 83 of Matt DiBenedetto. Here's what happened.
See 4 wide. Not sure Tony doesn't have some sort of a problem right here. 17 gets in the side of the 26. It's like no more damage than it was. The 14 got into the wall, locks it down. But the 14 was really slow getting into the corner, like he had some sort of a problem.
Just in front of him, Jeff Burton in the 26 got tapped by the 17 of Ricky Stenhouse Jr.
Yeah, it's just when you have a car like the 14 up top who was slow and they were already 3 wide underneath them, they don't expect it to be there. Oh, you see here earlier on the front stretch, the 1 of Jamie McMurray and the 14 of Tony Stewart get together. That causes the 14 to get out of the gas. He's instantly lost momentum. You see the cars going by on the inside, a little bit of smoke out of the back of the car, and then as they go down into turn 1, that 3 wide that caught Tony Stewart made it 4 wide. They just ran out of racetrack as they entered turn 1.
And the 14 troubles continue. They've not had a good year at all.
Mike.
And 48 was back on pit road, a 4-tire change and a slight chassis adjustment.
24 of Jeff Gordon has been struggling with the handling on his car. He says it starts out too tight and then suddenly it goes loose. It's just totally unpredictable. They made an adjustment and gave him 4 Goodyear tires.
2 of the Hendrick cars on pit road, the 24 and the 48. 3 wide back into turn number 1. Green flag just in the air. Kyle Busch, Carl Edwards, Brad Keselowski, the top 3.
Denny Hamlin with an aggressive move underneath the 42 of Kyle Larson. I almost paused there. They had me nervous. They were running out of the real estate. They were trying to go 3 and 4 wide.
Matt Kenseth in the 20. The Dollar General number 20 in front of his teammate Denny Hamlin, running the bottom of the racetrack early in this run.
He's up to 11th position after all that he went through. He's all the way back almost up to the top 10.
And we've had a bunch of quick back-to-back cautions, but the 11th of Denny Hamlin, he's pitted a little later than these guys is racing. He has about 14-lap fresher tires, and it seems like it's paying off at least in around the 10th position, but these positions are going to be harder as he gets closer to the front.
It was 10 laps ago when Denny Hamlin was on pit road. A lot of drivers took advantage of this most recent caution to come onto pit road. And Steve, you mentioned that the ones that came onto pit road most recently could make this, as we see Carl Edwards take the lead away from Kyle Busch for just a moment. Now Kyle Busch battling on the outside again, trying to hold on to that top spot. Carl Edwards so strong tonight here in Kentucky.
See what happens when they get into turn 1. They're going to be side by side. Let's see how close 18 gets to the 19. Gives him plenty of room.
Kyle Busch hanging on to that top spot. Carl Edwards all over the back bumper. Looking again to the inside. Going into turn 3. Can he make the pass this time? While they're racing side by side, the 2 getting larger in the picture. Kyle Busch still in front. Carl Edwards now 2 car lengths back, and here comes the 2 of Keselowski.
Carl fighting that wheel as Keselowski drives underneath him.
Keselowski easily making the pass, takes second away from Carl Edwards. How does the car fall off that fast, Jeff?
Because the 2 cars really fast. You know, he needed to pull that pass off when he could. He didn't quite get the pass made, wasn't able to get by the 18, and then the 2 car has been so quick it slowed that momentum down. The 2 was able to take advantage of it. I have a feeling the 2 is going to run the 18 down.
And once again, Kyle Busch, Brad Keselowski, 1 and 2 at Kentucky. The caution flag comes out again. There's debris in turn number 4. So for the 8th time, the pace slowed down because of a caution. Kyle Busch in front of Brad Keselowski, Carl Edwards, 3rd, Joey Logano, Kevin Harvick, your top 5. Kurt Busch, Casey Kane, Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex Jr., and Matt Kenseth, all in the top 10. Are you going to come to pit road now, Steve? We just had a caution.
Well, the problem is, as these cautions keep coming 10 and 12 laps apart, that is extremely hard for a crew chief to make a decision, because you don't have really any more laps on the tires than the last time pit road was open, but you've burned a little bit more fuel. You're getting into your pit windows. If I'm the 18 of the 2, we've had dominant cars all night long. I'm staying on the racetrack. But if I look farther back right here, the 4, the 41, 5, the 11, I think I'm coming. The 11 staying out. He has better tires. But the 5 of Casey Kane, the 78 of Martin Truex Jr., I'd be calm to pit road, getting 4 tires, resetting my entire pit strategy. I can make it to the end from here with 1 more stop.
Kyle Busch was on pit road on lap 124 about 28 laps ago, so halfway through a fuel run, and yet he decides to stay out. And the 2 of Brad Keselowski, 2nd, comes onto pit road.
A lot of them came. But you have a group here who stayed out.
And Rick, that was really Brad Keselowski's call. Paul Wolf left it up to him. Adam Stevens told Kyle Busch, no matter what, unless you have a problem, you're staying out. They're going to make 4 tire change here for Brad Keselowski, and also Kurt Busch on pit road. They've made a nice comeback this evening. Martin Truex Jr. takes 2 tires on his stop. There you see Kurt Busch with 4 tires for him, Dave.
Kyle Larson took left side tires last time in the 42 car. He'll get 4 tires this time. Still fighting the handling just a little bit, but working his way through the top 10.
Brad Keselowski restart this one up front. Let's listen. He's actually starting 2nd. Here was what he had to say on the radio.
Nothing lost. That's the way to stay smart. Really good race car. Yeah, we'll get him. My minion did not like Eminem.
Minions on board with Carl Edwards this weekend. And apparently the 2 aren't playing well together. So Kyle Busch once again chooses that outside line for the restart. Carl Edwards on the inside. Harvick and Logano in row 2. Fans waving along. The green flag comes back out. Jockeying for position back in the pack. Martin Truex Jr. in the 78 on the inside of 3 wide. Kyle Larson finds himself once again in the middle of a 3 wide situation. Here comes Denny Hamlin working the bottom of the racetrack. Trying to get by the 6, Trevor Bayne. Jimmy Johnson in the 48 on the high side. His teammate right behind him in the 24. Denny Hamlin trying to clear that 48, and Hamlin will take over the 5th position.
First time we've really seen the 6 of Trevor Bayne up toward the front tonight. Also the 15 of Clint Boyer. These 2 guys are, not been running well this year. This is a use of strategy to get to the front. Let's see if they can stay there. 15 underneath the 6.
Marty.
And how about the run for Trevor Bayne, currently in the 9th position, and they're that group that pitted at lap 137, so running well. I talked to Trevor earlier today. He said, honestly, I feel like our mile-and-a-half program has turned a bit of a corner. They've had 2 top 10s in the last 3 races. They'd love to make it another top 10 tonight.
Clint Boyer started the night off in total disarray. Didn't know what to do with the race car. They went to work on it constantly, and they've overcome a severe loose condition to dial this thing in. Boyer wasn't all that optimistic coming into the night, but things may have changed.
His teammate was running up front. We saw a little bit of contact there. It looked like between Martin Truex Jr. and the 16 of Greg Biffle. Very close racing. With Matt DiBenedetto slow on the apron.
Yeah, Martin Truex knows he has a good car. His patience is wearing thin as he comes up through the packs. The same thing with Brad Keselowski in the 2 underneath the 16 of Greg Biffle. These guys have decided to come in and get tires. They like their fuel window, but these drivers are going to lose patience. They know they have good cars. They have to get back to the front.
And they also know just one more time on pit road for drivers like Brad Keselowski.
Yeah, the problem is it's the same thing for Jimmy Johnson in the 48. You see Jeff Gordon on board with him in the 24 car, working the outside of the 48, trying to get to that quarter panel to establish the position. Does a great job of that. Now it's going to be as they carry down into turn 1. How much room is the 24? You see teammates working very well together. The 48 lets the 24 get down to the corner. But if you're the 11 and the 2, you mentioned fuel strategy. The 48 of Jimmy Johnson, he was last on pit road at lap 144. The same with the 24 Jeff Gordon. Both of those guys can make this race on one more stop.
Drivers like Kyle Busch, Carl Edwards, Kevin Harvick, and Joey Logano, the top 4, all came onto pit road at lap 124, which is almost 40 laps ago.
And don't forget, Jeff Gordon, this is his last race here. This is the last time we ever run at Kentucky. He doesn't have a win this year. He's teetered on having enough points to get into the chase. So all of these racers are important to him. He got 9 races left in the chase. So running well tonight could mean a great deal and determine whether he's going to make the chase or not.
A driver that has definitely run well tonight after the issues on pit road and the right front tire issue is Denny Hamlin. He was 2 laps down at one point in time in this race. He took the wave around, got the free pass, now on the lead lap and in the top 5.
So my concern for the 11 is they had a tire problem late in the run earlier in the race. Is this going to come up again? If this goes green for a long time, is there something in their setup that's going to hurt the right front tire again? As a driver, I'd be nervous about that. I would be trying to take it a little bit easy, just making sure I don't hurt a tire. There may be nothing wrong. If sometimes you run over something, you have a problem, but in the back of your head as a driver, you're always wondering, am I going to blow a right front tire?
Denny Hamlin rebounding very nicely. We see the 42 of Kyle Larson. He learned from the 24 of Jeff Gordon that if you get on that back bumper and even to the left side of the guy you're racing against, you can get them loose.
Well, let's see if he learned. Let's see what he does right here. Let's see if he tries to drive underneath. He didn't. He stayed in line. Maybe the 41 can just drive in the corner a little deeper than he can. But what you got to do is you got to drive through front bumper. When he lifts, you got to drive a little too far into the corner. Get your front bumper to his rear bumper. Try to get the air off of him. You may be going slower than you want to because your center of the corner speed is going to be slow because you drove in the corner too deep. But the car in front of you, he may be slower than you try to turn underneath him.
Brad Keselowski able to get by the 6 of Trevor Bayne.
Yeah, he's battled back all the way up to 9th. He's plus 10 since the restart, so he's already gained 10 positions back for his decision to come in and get 4 tires. And their decision, Paul Wolf's decision wasn't not only tires. He put 4 tires on it because he knew he was going to be back in the pack, but he understands he's strategizing already to be in position at the end of this race. And with 101 to go, he understands how the cautions need to fall for him and how the fuel's going to break down. These leaders are inside about 20 laps from needing to pit, so if we don't get a caution soon and a 1.5-mile track like Kentucky, they'll go a lap down if they hit pit road.
Matt Kenseth looking at the inside of Trevor Bayne. Kenseth and Bayne fighting for that 9th position.
Trevor Bayne's got to feel good running up here. He hasn't run well all year. To be running with Matt Kenseth has to be a plus.
Kyle Busch continues to lead. He's led 104 laps already. Since the dawn of time, the Minions have lived to serve the most despicable of masters. Now join Kevin Stewart and Bob as they head out on a thrilling new journey to find their next evil leader. Don't miss Minions, only in theaters today. Kyle Busch has the 18 Toyota Camry out front. Almost 2-second lead over his teammate Carl Edwards. Kevin Harvick, Joey Logano, and Denny Hamlin are your top 5. Let's go through the field. Let's start with Marty Snyder.
Kyle Busch out front in the #1 position. But Rick, the number they're worried about, 128. That's how far they are behind 30th position in the championship standings. They would love to make up more points tonight. They made up 8 last week, Kelly.
Behind him, Carl Edwards is using the same car that he drove to victory lane at the Coke 600. But outside of that win, he's only had 2 other top 10 finishes. His crew chief, Darian Grubb, telling him that at these mile-and-a-half tracks, they know they can get their team back on track, Mike.
Kelly, in 5 races here, Kevin Harvick has never led a lap at the Kentucky Speedway, but he can see the lead from where he's racing right now, 3rd. The car's been loose early in the run, but getting snug late, and that's what he likes, Dave.
4th place, Joey Logano. I asked him if he wishes he was in the 22 car last night for the Xfinity race. They said, yeah, because Brad won, but I always love racing whenever I can, and I always pick up something. Right now, his car's a little bit loose in and off the corner. As for Denny Hamlin, his crew chief, Dave Rogers, told me the guy that wins tonight will drive his butt off, and will earn it. And he's certainly done that after coming back from 2 laps down, Marty.
Dave, when the last caution came out, Brad Keselowski came on the radio and said, man, we just need to run. They did decide to pit, and they're becoming pros at coming through the field. Restarted 18th. He's all the way up to 6th. Very happy with the car, Kelly.
Jeff Gordon has really struggled whenever they've done 2 tire stops, so it's been 4 tires the last few times. His crew chief, Alan Gustafson, admits they just haven't been as good this year as they were last year. Jeff hasn't been as comfortable in the car. They need to work on getting speed up more consistently in the 24, Mike.
It's been an incredibly busy night for the 48 team on pit road. In addition to jacking the car up and working on the Panhard bar, they've been going to work on wedge, putting wedge in, taking it out, putting it in again, and taking it out. And finally, the car is coming to Jimmy Johnson. Matt Kenseth, on the other hand, his car is going away, it would seem. He says it's loose and getting looser. They're going to make significant adjustments next time down pit road. Marty.
Mike Trevor-Bayne having such a nice run. Started 28 today. He's up in the top 10. He's very happy with the forward drive and very happy with the car and how it's run in the last few laps. Earlier, he said it was better in the early part of the run. Now it's coming to life late in the run. And Kurt Busch continues to come back. They pitted, and they're the highest running car of those who pitted lap 153 that took on 4 tires. Doing very well right now. Kurt Busch happy with his race car, Mike.
Marty, Clint Bowyer has been 20th or worse on all the mile-and-a-half tracks throughout the course of the 2015 season. He's trying to put an end to that here tonight. They gambled on the last round of pit stops. He stayed out for track position. So far, it's paying off. He's inside the top 15, Dave.
Casey Kane told me he likes this new package because he gets to drive it with his feet. He works the pedals on the high line sometimes to really get a feel for the race car. It's an interesting comment.
Martin Truex Jr. said the car is still tight. They've been struggling with that all evening long. They did not like the car in practice at all. I asked Truex about that earlier. He said that was just Cole Pern trying a, quote, bunch of stuff yesterday. They put a regular setup in it, and they've been awfully fast during the race, Dave.
Marty, Kyle Larson pitted for 4 tires last time. It was loose off the wall, tight on landing, and tight when he went to the throttle, so they made an adjustment for that, trying to get the 42 back in it, Marty.
You know, David Reagan had an interesting comment a couple of weeks ago, Dave, when he said, I have to earn respect. I'm running with a new group of guys when I run up in the top 10. They haven't seen me run up there in quite a while, and he's earned that respect tonight. Car very fast. It's getting freer and freer, though, the longer he runs, Mike.
Eric Almirola has a loose race car, but that's the least of his concerns. A wire harness problem is preventing him from having good communication with his team. It's been on and off again throughout the evening. His teammate, Sam Hornish Jr., has been dealing with a loose condition, but the car is starting to get a little bit more snug. They made a track bar adjustment last time down pit road, and it's been a little bit better, Kelly.
A.J. Allmendinger in the 47 car. They're trying to get their season back on track and get their confidence back. It's a brand new car, new chassis, new nose, new setup. He has been struggling most of the night, but recently said the balance is better and is better on throttle. Behind him is Jamie McMurray. He went from having the best car he had all night, and then one stop later said he could just not get that thing to turn. The 2 tire stops not working for him. 4 tires from here on out for McMurray.
Excellent job, guys. Great information. Kyle Busch in front of Carl Edwards, as we see teammates fighting. Brad Keselowski able to get by Joey Logano. So Keselowski up to the 4th position. He was on pit road on lap 153. Biggest mover since the restart is Brad Keselowski. 14 positions already that he has made up. Allmendinger has made up 9 in that 47. Marty.
Kyle Busch out front, Rick, and he's in that group that last stopped at lap 124. Now the big debate. When does Adam Stevens bring in the pit road? Here's what they said on the radio.
Easy on your fuel. We got about 25 more laps in the tank, and we're going to have to ride it out. Familiar with your switch. Easy Easy on your fuel.
And right now they're looking at about lap 195, or as Adam Stevens told me, maybe a couple more than that. A little too free on entry right now for Kyle Busch.
One of the fastest cars on the track is Brad Keselowski, already up to third and continuing to run the fastest lap times, lap in and lap out.
Yeah, and a fast car helps a strategy. They decided to come down, be safe on fuel, pit at lap 153. He's already closed within 4 seconds of Kyle Busch, the leader, who has much older tires and a much smaller fuel load on board. So with the two, when you have a car like that, those are the fun ones to call the race for, because it's really not a bad strategy when your driver's on board and is positive about it, as Brad Keselowski has been.
We know that Keselowski can make it on one more stop. Kyle Busch, it's going to be close if they stretch the fuel. We see Kyle Larson trying to stay in front of the 78 of Martin Truex Jr. Kyle Larson, after starting up front because he had the fastest time in practice and qualifying was canceled, now has fallen all the way back to 14th.
We really thought the 42 of Larson was going to be quick all night. I mean, every practice he was quick, as you mentioned. But, you know, the conditions have changed. It's cold. It's the track's much more rubbered up, and there's race cars on the racetrack. In practice, there's maybe 8 or 9 cars on a track at a time. Now there's 43. That changes the way your car drives. And these teams don't have any information with this downforce package. They just don't know how to adjust going into the race and change from practice. Everybody's learning. These teams went the wrong way. Caution.
Caution out for the 9th time. Hearing there's debris in turn number 2. We will reset the field. Does this hurt Kyle Busch, who will now be able to come onto pit road, but will Brad Keselowski stay out since he was just on pit road on lap 153?
I think this is the caution that Kyle Busch wanted to see. Kyle Busch, Carl Edwards, all those guys, I think they wanted this caution.
All these crew chiefs look at fuel windows. Get this fuel window for a 2-stop race. Get to this fuel window for a 1-stop race. The beauty when you come to a racetrack, when you have tire fall off, we've talked about the bumps, we've talked about the wide groove, it's not only fuel. These guys have laps on their tires, 30 laps on their tires or more. I think everyone, the entire field, is coming to pit road, reset the race from here. It's outside of a fuel window. No one could go 81 laps on. If I'm anywhere in the top 20, I'm coming to pit road.
You're doing 4 or 2? If you're Kyle, you're doing 4, right? What about Keselowski?
I'm doing 4. Anyone on the top 20 has a minimum of 30 laps on their tires. The best case scenario is Matt Kenseth with only 30. Jeff Gordon has 36, Denny Hamlin 39. Those are all big numbers. I'm taking 4 tires. I'm resetting the field. We've worked to this point in the race. A 2-tire gamble here works if you get a short run, but if you get a long run, if it goes 60 laps green to the next pit stop, you're going to have to start really worrying about those left side tires. Plus, you've put yourself in a box for the next pit stop. Put 4 on it here. If this 80-lap run gets broke in the middle, you can put just 2 tires on at that point.
Well, the Verizon IndyCar Series coverage continues on NBCSN. Will Power looks to return to victory lane at the Milwaukee Mile and gain ground on points leader Juan Pablo Montoya. The Wisconsin 250 tomorrow at 5 Eastern on NBCSN. Our friend Lee Diffie is there calling the action.
What a great racetrack Milwaukee is. I mean, it's one of the oldest racetracks in the country. It's rough. It's kind of like this track. It's very porous, hard on tires. We know Lee Diffie's fun to listen to. I'll be watching. I can guarantee you that.
You know, a lot of the Cup guys used to test there for Loudon a lot. When you were allowed to go to all the different racetracks to test, you wouldn't use a race because it wasn't a Sprint Cup venue. You would go there. It's very similar to Loudon. Right. A great place to go test.
Flat 1-mile racetrack. Kyle Busch, the green light is on for pit road, and Kyle Busch leads the field onto pit road. Mike?
And Kevin Harvick coming down pit road. He's been saying to his crew chief that he needs to be better in turns 3 and 4. They'll bring the wedge wrench over the wall and try to make a chassis adjustment and a 4-tire change in the 4, Kelly.
Kyle Edwards in the 19 says that he has tons of grip early, but then it goes away and he gets loose. They have been doing 4-tire changes, and they'll do it again this time, Marty.
Kyle Busch will take 4 tires here. Adam Stevens was worried about the fuel there. He actually told Kyle, slow down on the racetrack, because they worried they were not going to be able to make it till lap 195. You see Brad Keselowski also going with 4 tires for Kyle Busch. It was a free car for Keselowski. He loved the way the car handled. Kyle Busch will win the race off pit road.
Another great stop for the 11 team. Denny Hamlin comes out second, gains 4 positions. I can do it. Clear, all clear, especially when you're on the track by yourself. Ryan Newman decided to stay out. what do we think about this strategy?
Well, I think he's just trying to get to his pit window, but as the only car that stayed out, I think it's going to make this restart really hairy up front.
Moving on the outside, Kyle Busch on the inside. Green flag back in the air. Can Newman hang on? Newman was on pit road on lap 153, and already he's fallen back to fourth.
If anybody can do it, it's Ryan Newman. This is what they do every week. They don't necessarily use this strategy, but to put Ryan Newman in a position where he has to do good on restarts. He does it every single week. He gains spots. He hardly ever loses. So he has this advantage in tires, but he'll hang in there the best he can.
And the only way this works out is if we stay green the rest of this race, because he'll be able to come in, get his 4 tires, fuel, and be able to get back out on the track before everyone else can catch up.
I'm an open-minded crew chief, and everyone knows I have tried some very heroic strategies that didn't pan out for me, but this one for the 31 is definitely pretty far out on a limb, but that's what they need to do. They need to make the trace. Luke Lambert is a very creative, very smart crew chief. He sees the race from a very unique angle, and at times it's paid off. We're just going to have to wait and see, but this one is going to have to really fall his way for it to work out.
He's definitely off the pace. We saw Jeff Gordon almost get into the back of him coming off of turn 4. They're 4 wide. Kyle Larson now trying to go by the 24 of Jeff Gordon. There's the 48 of Jimmy Johnson.
Anytime the field catches the slowest car after a restart, things really get bottled up, get up 3 wide, 4 wide. We saw the wreck earlier when they got 3 wide catching Stewart, so that's what you got to be careful of watching the 31.
Jeff Gordon in his final start at Kentucky Speedway, just in front of his teammate Jimmy Johnson, but for how long? Jimmy Johnson looks to the inside, trying to take away the 7th spot. Gordon stays strong though, able to hold on to it. Now Kyle Larson looking at the inside of the 48. Looking back on the 48, Jimmy Johnson from Jeff Gordon's on board. Multiple lines. We've already seen 194 laps. How do you feel about the new aero package?
I think it's great. The restarts have been good. We've seen cars come from the back, back to the front. We've seen a lot of passing, so far I'm a fan.
And not just this aero package, the changes that NASCAR has been able to make to the cars for a facility like Kentucky has been a perfect fit. That makes me excited, looking forward to Michigan, Indianapolis, other places they plan on tweaking aerodynamics. They have different ideas in mind, but it's a different style racetrack. It seems like whatever simulation or ideas they're using are really applying well to the racing.
Kyle Larson almost into the wall coming out of turn number 4. The 41 of Kurt Busch saw it, and here comes Brad Keselowski in the 2. Car sideways coming out of turn number 4.
Brad's had a fast car all night. He just keeps losing track position. When you have that fast car and you lose the track position, it's so frustrating. You know if you get up front, you feel like you have a shot to win this race.
Yeah, and earlier in the race, they lost track position, but there's 150 to go, 125 laps to go, 70 laps to go. That is like the ticking alarm clock in a driver and a crew chief's head. As those laps count down, they know their time's running out. They have to get back towards the front.
It puts a lot of pressure on you as a driver. You're only afforded a few mistakes. You're only afforded a few bad moves a race. The further back you get, those costly expenses, they're bigger. See Kyle Larson at 42 get really loose, leaving the corner, almost gets into the wall. Does a good job, really doesn't lose much momentum doing it. Just stayed in the gas.
Yeah, Brad Keselowski right behind him. He's looking underneath the 41. He's looking for any opportunity he can to get by these guys.
Keselowski was able to get by both Kurt Busch and Kyle Larson. Marty?
And guys, the problem for Brad Keselowski on the last stop, you mentioned they had problems on the right front. I talked to Hunter Masling, the man who changes the right front tire. He said it simply switched patterns on him when he was trying to take the lug nuts off. It went to the on pattern. He had to switch it back, and that's what took so long and resulted in the 17-second stop. But listen to the night for Keselowski. What you were just talking about, Jeff. They've made runs tonight from 13th to 2nd in one run, 18th to 3rd in one run, 10th to 4th in one run, and in this run they restarted 15th, already up to 9th. Paul Wolf said on the radio, guys, we got to quit giving up the lead. We simply can't afford it.
Well, if I'm Brad Keselowski and Paul Wolf, I'm going to be very thankful to NASCAR and the package they brought, because we've seen Kentucky as a track that's very hard to pass on in the past. But tonight, they're doing a great job moving up through the field. And mechanical failures on pit stops can be so frustrating. We train, all these teams on pit road have trainers, have coaches, have everything to work on these pit stops, but you still have this mechanical aspect.
And Steve, isn't there just a button? It's almost like a drill at home that you can forward or reverse, and they have the same thing with these guns, these air guns.
Yeah, so basically if you watch the right front tire changer, he hits a few lug nuts, he leans back, hits on the gun with his hand, goes back in and starts to take the lug nuts again. It's a button that goes from one side of the gun to the other, completely through the, one on one side and one on the other. It's very hard to switch. He had to hit the button with his hand very firmly to switch it over, but those guns have such a vibration. You don't know, maybe was it not swapped all the way over when he jumped off the wall, or is there a mechanical issue inside the gun that's allowing it to switch over?
The two issues on pit road have relegated the 2 car all the way to the back of the field twice now, that he has had to been working from the back to the front. He's had one of the fastest cars all night long and has been out front for 62 laps. But because of issues on pit road, he's had to continue to battle to get back to the front.
And these are the races that test the relationship between the driver and the team. At times, the driver feels like, man, I'm doing all I can. The team lets me down. And that works the other way, too. The team feels like the driver lets him down. These are the times the two got to stay together. They got to talk about it. You got to just say, hey, man, we got to make it happen. We got to fix these problems. But when you have these issues at this point in the race, it becomes very, very tense inside the pit crew.
And as we get later in the race, going back up through traffic becomes a taller order. People are less forgiving. People aren't going to wave you by. People are going to race you harder. And when I look at the top 5 of the field, Kyle Busch, been there all night. Denny Hamlin has had trouble all night, recovered, back to second. Logano, Harvick, Edwards, those 5 guys right there. As you see Keselowski making short work of the 24 Jeff. I mean, his car is very, very good. But all of this takes time, and time is running out. And when he gets into that top 5, those top 5 cars are extremely fast.
You say his car is good. Even as he was catching the 24 car, he was the fastest car on the racetrack. So we know he has a fast car. He's just got to get that track position back.
And twice now I have seen Brad Keselowski, after he's passed Jeff Gordon, stick his left hand out the window and kind of wave like thanks. But there's been some bad blood between those 2 drivers, especially last year at Texas.
Well, it's just a sign of saying thank you. Not, this isn't the time of the race necessarily to be really, really racing me hard. I got a better car. You didn't hold me up too much. You didn't do anything bad to me. It's just saying thank you. Trust me, when it comes time and they're racing close to each other, there will be no waving anymore. Brad Keselowski, again, the fastest car.
Yeah, once again, Brad Keselowski, the fastest car on the track. Dominion's 19, trying to get by the 4 of Kevin Harvick. Carl Edwards has been strong tonight, Kelly.
He has, but on that last pit stop, they lost some positions, and Carl thinks maybe there's some minions to blame for it.
You get hosed up in your overalls or something? It's just fine, guys. I'll get you a good start. We'll get right back up there.
And you heard Darren Grubb just telling him to blow it off right now. Carl Edwards saying that he's neutral in 1 and 2, free in turn 3.
Danica Patrick looks to have gotten into the grass.
Get rolling when you can. Leaders just history.
Right rear damage and right front damage to the 10. She goes back out on the track. Danica was 27.
4 tires and fuel. Start
on the
working on
lead
the
lap.
damage.
And then the race leader was able to get by her to put her a lap down. So this, the 10th caution of the night, which ties the record for cautions at Kentucky.
See Danica driving into turn 3. Oh, gets loose. Gets a tap from Junior. And she went. Again, we've heard all night that Junior's had trouble with brakes. So when Danica got a little bit free, could Junior not get slowed down and he got into the back over? That could have been the issue.
Danica Patrick with damage to the right side into the grass. Once we got past the 60 laps, now are we in a window where everyone will come back to pit road?
Absolutely. Pit road's going to be completely full. Anyone on the lead lap, they need to pit now, fill up their tanks, and make sure they're good to the finish.
Denny Hamlin making the move to the inside, and pit road is open. Kelly Stavist.
nearly half of Carl Edwards' career wins have come on 1.5-mile tracks. His last one came on 1, and he's looking strong again today. As I said, neutral in 1 and 2, but then he is free into turn 3. They were going to make an adjustment to help him out with that, Marty.
Busch would love to add another win to the column. Adam Stevens making the call for just right side tires here. He said it took off tight, but freed up, Dave.
Second place, Danny Hamlin was free and tied off. Right side tires for him. Joey Logano avoids Danica Patrick. Right side tires for him as well. His car started off free.
Denny Hamlin winning the race off pit road in front of his teammate, Kyle Busch. Carl Edwards. You're watching the Quaker State 400 presented by Advanced Auto Parts. Patrick, talk me through this as a driver, Jeff.
Hey, let's listen to Junior.
Our staff deep in it, okay, but that's like every other lap. Yeah, you don't have that confidence to drive it where you want it. I know. We messed up on the brakes there.
Yeah, you can hear him talking about the brakes. He just didn't have the confidence to drive it. The crew chief said that. He said they messed up on the brakes, which meant they probably brought the wrong package. And you could just see he just ran into the back of the 10 car because he did not have brakes.
And this just happened. The 10 gets into the back of the 88 as they get onto pit road.
Yeah, she doesn't know. She doesn't know that he is having a brake problem. You know, she just thinks she knows somebody just ran into the back of her. She just doesn't know the whole story.
They continue to work on the brakes. At the beginning of that replay, we saw his left leg pounding on that brake pedal. I mean, pumping.
So here's what you're doing as a driver. When your brakes have gotten hot, Steve talked about it earlier, you've actually boiled the fluid in the calipers. So the only thing you can do is try to get more fluid in them. So you're pumping, trying to get fluid and move air out of the caliper. That's your only recourse as a driver. Obviously, he's pumping as hard as he could, but he just never got the friction that he needed to get the car slowed down.
So Dale Earnhardt Jr. has had brake issues. Brad Keselowski has had pit road issues.
You see the tire changer, he falls because Brad can't see him. He just knows that Jack fell. The cue to leave is that Jack fall. He took off.
Yeah, and then later in the race, they come to change 4 tires. There's trouble in the right front tire. The air gun malfunctions, switches positions. Very slow on the right front. A 17-second pit stop.
Paul Wolf talking to the over-the-wall crewmen. They've got a fast car.
I've had those conversations. That's a polite, we got this fixed, right? Whatever the problem was, we got that fixed.
Is that a question or a statement?
It's a statement with a question mark, and I hope they know it's just not to be answered when I used to ask those questions.
Marty.
Well, 56 to go, and this is when guys like Steve Letarte formally get a little nervous. Adam Stevens a little nervous up here. The car's been so good, Adam.
It's hard to get nervous. You know, you can't control when these cautions fall. Luckily, it's kind of worked with our strategy tonight. If we get a couple quick cautions, it's going to get really interesting. But we have fuel to the finish. The M&M's Crispy Camry's been great. Kyle's drove a heck of a race, and we're hoping for the best.
It's going to be very interesting to see if Kyle Busch, who's been the dominant car, led the most laps tonight, can hang on, Rick.
Yeah, you mentioned dominant. How about JGR as far as dominant goes? First, second, third, and fifth for the JGR Toyota Camrys.
Kansas needs to get up in there. One more position than have the top 4.
He's a slacker because he's not in the top 4 right now like the other 3 drivers.
I think they like this package. Seems to be working well.
Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin making up the front row. Fans back on their feet again. Race for the lead between teammates. Denny Hamlin on the high side could not hold off the 18 of Carl Edwards. Now Denny Hamlin goes to the bottom of the track. We heard Kyle feathering the accelerator there. They're going to be 3 wide for the lead. Here comes Carl Edwards to the inside. Edwards leads that lap as they go into turn number 1. Carl Edwards loose up the racetrack, has to catch it. Denny Hamlin in front. Kyle Busch second. Carl Edwards back to third. And here comes Joey Logano.
And Joe Gibbs is somewhere, has his eyes closed. There's 3 of his race cars going to turn 1 3 wide.
Carl Edwards had to pinch the car so tight getting into the corner that when he got to the middle of the corner, he just had to chase it up. Here's Logano making a move.
Joey Logano will take second away from Kyle Busch as they go across the stripe. Denny Hamlin trying to check out. as they go too wide behind him for that second spot. Joey Logano takes it away from Kyle Busch. Now can Keselowski reel them in. Seeing some damage to the back of Kyle Larson.
Some heavy smoke coming out of the 42.
Got a pretty bad cinder rub or something. Yeah, 10-4 left rear.
A big rub from the 42.
What concerns me is the smoke's all the way down the straightaways. You can expect in the corner as the car squashes down into the corner, the tire can rub the fender, but on the straightaway, you hope it would clear up.
He just said, "You want me to pit?"
Crew chiefs hate hearing that. You have to try to almost put it back on the driver.
Pretty bad.
Yeah, I think he's making the right decision. I think you have to bring this car to pit road.
Top 6 right now. JGR and Penske, as we see the 42 of Kyle Larson have to come to pit road. Joe Gibbs Racing and Penske have won all 4 of the previous races here at Kentucky. Dave, here comes the 42.
And he restarted 8th, Rick, after an up and down night. He'd finally gotten back to the up position, and the car was driving better for him, but this is disappointing for him. They'll change the left side tires. Pretty obvious it's the left rear.
How hard do you race your teammate with 50 laps to go?
Very. It's time to go. I mean, it's about you and your team right now. You treat everybody with respect. And to be quite honest with you, it's winning time right now. So you just got to go get all you can. You race them as hard as you need to race them to get this win.
Kyle Busch in 3rd. Carl Edwards 4th. Brad Keselowski 5th.
Brad almost got into the wall. He got so close to the 19. He was in the gas. He lost the whole car. You can see how much room he's lost. He had to get out of the throttle to keep from getting into the wall.
Matt Kenseth running 6th to round out the Joe Gibbs Racing stable.
And if this race goes green, all those little things, it just takes that much longer to get back to the front. So Brad's trying really hard, but you got to make these passes. You got to stay in position. Now he's going to take another 4 or 5 laps just to get back to, and maybe by the 19, the clock's ticking. You got to make something happen.
All of these drivers were informed. They know that without a caution, this is the run to the finish. Everyone can make it on fuel, and that's obvious when you start to see these restarts. The intensity is ratcheted up. The 42 right here, he's still smoking. He had contact on the restart. The give and take is gone. It's take, and take some
Left
more.
rear's down on the 42. Let's see if he stays out of the wall. He kisses the wall. The 42 has the left rear down, and that brings out the caution for the 11th time.
Yellow's out.
They came in and put tires on it, but they just didn't get the problem fixed. You didn't get the fender pulled out enough, went back out, cut the tire again.
That was a record that we didn't want to break, but we did. Record number of cautions here at Kentucky. Kyle Larson will once again be on pit road.
All right, Sal. 12 laps on your tires. You know, Hamlin, Logano, Kyle Busch, Edwards, I would expect the top 3 or 4 to stay out. But where's the brake line? What I mean by that is, Jeff, you know as a driver, the brake line's important to you. You don't want to be the last car that stays out. Right. You want to be the first car that comes on new tires. The front 4 or 5, they're not going to give up their track position with over 30 cars on the lead lap, but someone is going to pit. Is it 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th? And if they do pit, will those tires help them in the run to the finish?
Yeah, as a driver, you're looking in the mirror when you're coming down the front straightaway, and when you see no one behind you, it's a sickening feeling because you're the last guy with old tires. You know they're going to be charging at you. Let's see who pits.
Last time they were on pit road, lap 208, Eric Almirola looks to bring the 43 onto pit road.
No, I mean, it looks to me all the leaders stayed out, at least all the top 12. 13th on back hits pit road. I don't disagree with their strategy. I think it's a good strategy, but I love the leaders. Worked hard for the track position. Let's keep it.
Top 12 stayed out. Welcome back to NASCAR Sprint Cup Series racing from Kentucky, presented by KFC. For the latest NASCAR news and highlights from this race weekend in Kentucky, don't miss NASCAR Victory Lap. That's tomorrow evening at 11 p.m. on NBCSN. Brad Keselowski currently running in the 5th spot. Jeff, can we talk to him?
Brad, Jeff Burton.
TV just came back from commercial. commercial. They'll get us next time here.
And it sounds like they are getting ready. They're 2 by 2. So we won't chat with them with less than a lap to go before the green flag. Brad Keselowski running in the 5th position. The top 15 on the track came on lap 208. Behind them, Gilliland, Bowman, and Stenhouse Jr. all came onto pit road at lap 221. Take a look at where Brad has run. A seesaw day for Keselowski.
If that ends up in 1st, it's a great story. You tell around the shop on Monday morning. But if it ends up in 4th or 5th, the meetings about why you went from 1st to 13th and 1st to 10th and so on, those are not fun meetings to be a part of.
Had such a strong car all night. Now his teammates on the front row. Joey Logano, Denny Hamlin on the outside. The race leader determines when we restart. Green flag back in the air. 43 laps to go from Kentucky. Once again, 3 wide as they go into turn 1. Carl Edwards trying to get by his teammate. Kyle Busch has already done it. Kyle Busch moves up to 2nd, chasing after Joey Logano down the backstretch. Here comes that FedEx number 11 of Denny Hamlin, looking to get back by Carl Edwards. Brad Keselowski to the inside of Kevin Harvick. Keselowski restarted 5th, dropped back to 7th. Now trying to get by Matt Kenseth.
It was nice work by Keselowski. He had to really pinch the car off getting into 1, but was able to hug the bottom, made the pass on Harvick. I thought he almost was going to get the pass on Kenseth done at the same time. Now Harvick's making a run back underneath him.
Here comes Denny Hamlin, back by Carl Edwards. Carl Edwards strong on the outside with the momentum. Hamlin makes the pass, slides up in front of Carl Edwards, and Edwards is going to cross over and go back to the bottom of the track.
Saw Hamlin driving the corner really deep. He couldn't hold the bottom, washed up. Carl Edwards just turned underneath him, got him back 2 wide.
Here comes Kenseth. All 3 teammates running together here.
See Keselowski behind him. He's under attack. Seems like his car's not as good right now.
And right up the middle, here comes Jeff Gordon. Gordon makes the pass on both Harvick and the 2 of Brad Keselowski.
That's what you want to see. Every time you have to work on a pass, it takes a little life out of your car, it takes a little speed out of your car. When you can get 2 on the 1 straightaway, that's efficient. That's moving up through the field as quick as you can get there.
Jeff Gordon up to the 6th spot. Brad Keselowski still holding on to 7th, Marty.
And Rick, you've mentioned it, holding on. He just radioed to his guys. I don't know if I have a flat left rear or what, but something is wrong with the car.
And another issue with the 2. His problems have been, and very loose there, but his problems have been on pit road, now potentially a flat left tire. Kenseth working to the inside of his teammate Carl Edwards. Joey Logano has a 6/10 second lead over Kyle Busch. Denny Hamlin, Carl Edwards, Matt Kenseth, Jeff Gordon, Kevin Harvick, Brad Keselowski falling back to 8th now. Denny Hamlin on the restart was the race leader, lost that lead to Logano, and Kyle Busch, his teammate, was able to get by him. So now Denny Hamlin running 2.4 seconds behind race leader Logano. Will try to reel him in, only has 37 laps to go. That's the gap between 1 and 3. Logano looking strong at the end of this one.
We've talked about at brakes on the Earnhardt's car. This is a mile-and-a-half racetrack. We don't think a lot about brakes. I saw Matt Kenseth trying to race Carl Edwards. Watch him get into turn 3. Look at the left front rotor. It's glowing red. That's how much heat there are in the rotors. We don't see this at mile-and-a-halves. This aero package, look at it glowing. This aero package has made the drivers use more brake. When it quit glowing, he was off of the brake. That's part of why Junior's problem. Way more heat than they expected.
And you have to ask yourself, if we would have had that testing, is this some of the things they would have saw if they would have had more track time and were able to make longer runs on their race cars?
And with the heat in the rotor, that puts more heat in the tire, which then puts more pressure in there, and the handling changes, correct?
That's a great point. And when you talked earlier, Earnhardt didn't get those fans on. That was one of the problems, is the air pressure just builds and builds and builds, because all that heat from the rotor goes straight into the wheel and then into the tire.
Mike Massara.
Well, it's been an interesting night for Matt Kenseth, that's for sure. They had an early scare in this race when they thought they had an alternator problem. Well, that has gone away. That's the good thing. We're watching Joey Logano now up front. But, Kenseth's problem has only been a loose race car. They've been trying to dial that car in. So far, it's not perfect, but it's much better than it was 100 laps ago. Kelly?
Carl Edwards has started 20th, but has spent most of the race inside the top 5. He's been a little bit free, and that was evident as he was battling 2 of his teammates in the 11 and the 18. And Carl radioed in after that, hey, coach had to be a little nervous there, Dave.
Kelly, this morning, crew chief Dave Rogers told me for Denny Hamlin, our back-end speed is really good. Our front-end speed, not so much. So that was what he was going to tune for, and that's the problem you saw Hamlin have. Here's a problem for Denny right now, 33 to go. He doesn't want another caution to make up the time. What he needs is for this to go green, but I don't know if that'll be enough time, Marty.
Dave Kyle Busch up in second, trying to track down his former teammate, Joey Logano. Kyle said, what did you guys do to this car? It is so tight since the restart. He is up 7.7 on the track bar, trying to get this thing to loosen up. But no matter what, it's been a fantastic night for JGR, Dave.
And Marty, back to our leader, Joey Logano. I talked with the team this weekend and talked to them about not winning since the Daytona 500 earlier this year. They said, yeah, it's frustrating, but we've been happy with our program. We know that it's strong, and we know that the wins are just around the corner because we've had the speed. Could this be one tonight for Logano? Rick?
And his teammate, Brad Keselowski, has fallen back to the 8th spot, but looks to be holding on to that 8th position. Here's what he had to say on the radio just moments ago.
This is going to ride the chill off this rear tire. I can't even do anything right now. Spun out about 3 times.
I heard him say he spun out, almost spun out about 3 times, and that's just saying, hey, look, I'm doing all I can. That's communicating to his team, just saying there's nothing left. We've got to try to, we're hoping for a caution. We got to change something. He's just doing all he can. He cannot lean on the right rear tire. When he does, he gets way too loose.
The Joe Gibbs Racing 4 cars all took 2 tires on the last pit stop, and they're running 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th right now. Can they hang on to that for the next 30 laps?
I think they can hang on to that for the next 30 laps, but the biggest problem is Joey Logano took 4 tires on the pit stop, and he, through the restarts, and a great restart. We talk about restarts and how important they are. This is the example. The 22 took 4 tires, started behind the JGR cars, got around them early in this run. Now he's using those 4 tires as an advantage, and that is going to pay off as we get deeper into this run with only 29 to go.
To get into the chase, Kyle Busch had to win a race and then get into the top 30 in points. He's been able to win a race. He won at Sonoma. Then at Daytona, had to fight back to get a 17th place finish, and now running 2nd at Kentucky. He's doing almost everything he can do to get into the top 30 in points.
Kyle Busch has changed his line. He's moved way up to the top of the racetrack. When he did that, he went from being about the 4th fastest car to the 1st or 2nd fastest car almost every lap. He's cut this lead to under a 2nd. He's coming on Logano right now.
Marty.
And Rick, remember all that talk after they won at Sonoma about how Kyle Busch was going to points race for the rest of the regular season, trying to get himself into the chase? I don't think he's points racing right now. He can sniff that win and that checkered flag. I think he would love to get that victory and get another sticker on the windshield of that car.
It's another 5 points. I mean, you get bonus points for winning, and he needs points right now.
Yeah, Marty. I hear what he said about points racing, but winning races is points racing at its finest. If you want to gain the most points, you win a race. This is a perfect example about a racetrack with options. Kyle Busch was stuck in the middle of the racetrack, stuck on the bottom, getting nowhere with the 22. You see as he enters turn 3, he's a groove and a half higher than the 22. Right at the edge of the gray, staying in the black where the grip is, but right at the edge of the gray. He seems to lose time entering the corner, but that high run keeps the RPMs up. He carries a tremendous amount of speed down the front stretch, slowly gaining on the 22 of Joey Logano.
When you enter the corner on the high line, you do not have to drive in the corner quite as deep. The reason you do it is because you're opening the radiuses up of the corner, and you don't have to turn the car. So you get in the corner easy, but you go to the throttle sooner. You don't have to turn the car so you don't upset it. It's working right now. You can see him coming on the 22.
At the top of your screen, you see the gap continues to close about 0.5 of a second, separating the 22 and the 18. Now it's under 0.4 of a second.
Well, Jeff, if you're the driver in the 22, when do you move up? When do you go up and say, I have to try to, even if I'm not as good up there, I need to take the 18's line away?
You got to take his line. The 22 is where he wants to be, but you just got to go somewhere. I think he might have to do it this lap. He's catching some lap traffic, but I think at some point he's going to have to make that move. This could be a big deal with the lap traffic.
They're able to negotiate past one of the cars. That's a lap down, but the gap still closes between Joey Logano and Kyle Busch. Under 0.3 of a second, separating the top two.
The lap car took the line that Busch wanted, but this gives him a chance to try something. If Logano takes his line, Busch got a free pass right there. He didn't have a choice but to go to the bottom. Now Busch learns, what did my car do in that groove if he does need to go there?
Back to the top of the track, the 18 of Kyle Busch.
22 is loose. You can see the 22 moving around, the back of the car moving. Kyle's licking his chops right now. This is what he wants to see. When you can run the top, you want the car on the bottom to be loose, because if you ever get to the outside of him, you're only going to make him looser.
And he still has time. 23 to go.
Look at him bobble. The gap is closed now. He's on the back bumper. Here comes Kyle Busch once again.
I think Logano's got to take the high line right here. He's got to take away Busch's groove. There he went. He took the high line.
Up the racetrack goes the 22. Kyle Busch looking down a little bit lower, a half a groove lower.
But you talked, Jeff, about how you have to back up the entry. You have to back up the entry. It looked like the 22 overdrove the entry. He hadn't been up top all night, and there he drove in too hard. You see again, he tries to run the top. The 18 crosses him over. He's going to run the middle.
Logano's learning under fire right now. It's the only way he can learn. He had to go there, but he's learning under the fire of the 18.
A little bit of contact there between the 22 and 18. Here comes Kyle Busch to the bottom of the track for the lead. Kyle Busch, is he going to clear him? He does. He takes the top spot away from Joey Logano. Here comes Logano back to the bottom of the racetrack. Down to the apron he goes, and Logano's back out front.
And you need to be careful. The apron of the front stretch is so rough, you can bend something going over those bumps.
And you saw Logano do what he did when he cleared the 18. He just went straight to the wall. He said, I'm not letting you get on the outside of me. He just completely took that groove away from Kyle Busch.
Logano takes the lead back away from Kyle Busch. Now Busch to the high side again, trying to keep the momentum up.
Let's see if Logano, if this works for Logano. He went back to the bottom. 18's going to eat him up on the straightaway.
He needs to get back into that rhythm.
He'll just keep backing on up.
You heard him. Plenty of time. Plenty of time. Settling the driver back down. That was an exciting moment, but there's still 20 to go. Get back in your rhythm. Get back to the top. Figure out how you caught him the first time. You can catch him again.
20 to go at this. 20 to go feels like 2 to go right now.
It didn't take long for him to get to the back bumper, the 22. And the 22 up high. Did he get in too fast? Kyle Busch still behind him as they come out of turn number 4. Busch looking to the inside for the lead once again. That time across the stripe, Kyle Busch your leader by 14/1000ths of a second. Kyle Busch is going to clear the 22. This time he makes it stick. Kyle Busch, the leader at Kentucky.
Just inch away now.
We talked at the top of the show about adapting to the racetrack. Kyle Busch has adapted. He found a new line that worked for his race car. He got up to the top of the racetrack, ran the 22 down, and passed him.
Now they'll come up to the lap traffic once again. How will it affect each driver as they get to him? 18 laps remain. Joey Logano, the middle of the racetrack. Kyle Busch up high.
This is where the spotters could help. Kyle Busch's spotter, Tony Hirschman, he can be up there waving his hands, trying to find the cars in front of him, letting these lap cars know, hey, we want the top. Most of the leaders all day long have been passing these lap cars in the bottom. You have to let their spotter know, hey, we want the other lane. Move to the bottom, see if we can have the top.
Kyle Busch way up. The high end of the dark asphalt here at Kentucky. All the rubber laid down on the track over the last 2 days. And Kyle Busch is running right at the edge of that.
Dreaming up there. Everybody just keep it straight, please.
Everybody just keep it straight, please. Marty.
And that was Kyle Busch talking to Tony Hirschman, his spotter. He said, if the gentleman's agreement still works up there, tell everybody in front of us, just keep it straight. Hirschman's done a fantastic job. Once he got past Logano, he said, now, don't look behind you at all. I'll tell you if he gets close. You just worry about what's out front of you. Jeff, I'm sure that's comforting as a driver when you can say, okay, I don't have to check that rearview mirror anymore. My spotter's got my back.
No question. And let me tell you something. Everybody talks about Kyle Busch being an aggressive driver, just drives with his foot, just goes for it all the time. He's a very smart driver. I want to show you something. Going down the back straightaway, the 18 car prior to the pass caught Logano. Watch what happens. He doesn't try to pass him. He didn't turn left. The reason he did that, he knew his strength. He wanted to beat him getting into turn 1. If he drove underneath the 22 at the wrong time, the 22 isn't the spot he wanted. Now the 18 tries to make the pass. Now he gets into turn 1 in the position he wants to be in and is able to clear the 22. Just because you catch a guy, that doesn't mean it's the right time to pass him. Kyle Busch was not only aggressive, but he was smart.
And it has worked out. Kyle Busch now with a 1.1 second lead over second place Joey Logano. Denny Hamlin, Carl Edwards, Matt Kenseth, the top 5. Jeff Gordon just outside that top 5 in 6. Brad Keselowski has moved up to 7. Kevin Harvick, Jimmy Johnson, Kurt Busch, your top 10.
We'll talk about Busch and that team needing points. Winning races get you the most points. They're not going to get in the chase unless they get in top 30 in points. Obviously, this is how you get the most points. You got to love the fight in this team. Everybody counted them out, including me. I said on the NASCAR America show they were done about 4 weeks ago. Guess what? I was wrong. They're still alive.
Adam Stevens, Kyle Busch's crew chief on top of the pit box right now. He's going through his numbers. He's crunching all the information he has about tire and tire fall off. If the caution comes out, he's going to have to make a decision. They have almost 40 laps on the tires. The same thing on the 22. Todd Gordon, the crew chief of Joey Logano. He's coming up with a strategy. These guys sitting on top of the pit box, they're not out of this. I know they seem to be spectators just looking, but every lap you ask yourself as a crew chief, if the caution comes out, what do I do? If the caution comes out, what do I do? You ask yourself that lap after lap after lap. That way you're prepared. If the yellow flies, you have your strategy already in mind.
And Adam does not want to see the caution come out as his car right now is dominant.
Now that's the easiest strategy when you're the leader. If the thing can go green, you sit back, watch your driver do what he does best.
It's so hard. Sometimes when you're a leader, you're so disadvantaged when that caution comes out. Because whatever you do, others are going to do the exact opposite. They have nothing to lose. Being the leader this late in the race, if the caution comes out, can be a huge disadvantage.
The one thing Kyle Busch needs to do from here on out, at least tell Richmond, is get the most points possible. That means lead a lap, you get a point. Lead the most laps, you get a point. Win the race, you get 3 points. So what he has done tonight is dominate and get the most possible points he could get as we have 10 laps of racing to go. Kyle Busch still in front, has a 2-second lead over Joey Logano.
If he keeps this sort of pace up when we go to these tracks with a variety of aero packages and continues to win races, we're not going to have to wait to Richmond to figure out if he's going to be in the top 30. He's going to be there before Richmond.
Danica Patrick running the high line. So Kyle Busch will go down into the middle of the track. Edwards, a very strong run tonight, running 4th. Denny Hamlin, Carl Edwards, Matt Kenseth, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Joe Gibbs Racing right now has all 4 of their cars in the top 5. August of 2008 at Michigan, Fenway was able to do that. Joe Gibbs Racing has never had that happen, where they have had all 4 cars in the top 5 finish in the top 5.
It says a lot about the company, their preparation for this new package that we showed up with, how their tools, how they prepared. Not only did they get 1 car fast, they've got all 4 cars fast. You see Brad Keselowski, he had lost rear grip, fallen back a little bit. He's making a charge a little bit back through the front, underneath the 24 of Jeff Gordon.
We see it again. These two racing side by side. Keselowski is able to take the spot once again.
If Kyle Busch could see these guys racing like that, he would not be happy. He does not want a caution. Stay away from each other.
When you start hearing things, I've heard that from drivers my whole life. You get to about 5 to go and you start hearing these magical noises.
And the vibrations begin, and they get even worse.
Well, he's coming around to 6 to go, and let me promise you something. At 32nd laps, this will be the longest 3 minutes of his life. It feels like it will never end when you're leading the race. You just know something's going to happen. You're dreading something's going to happen. All you can do, though, is just not make a mistake. Don't get into anybody. Give everybody plenty of room so you don't accidentally spin somebody. That's all you can do, and just hope nobody else makes a mistake. But he's praying for no cautions. There's a lot of other people that want a caution.
Logano wants a caution. He's running second. I'm sure Keselowski would like a caution. He's in 6th and had such a dominant car tonight.
Go right here. 5.
5 laps of racing to go from Kentucky.
It's easy in the corner. Be easy back on the throttle. Just don't make a mistake. Kyle Busch, chance of him making a mistake at this point in the race are pretty slim. He's such a smart driver. He's an aggressive driver again, like we talked about, but he uses his head also.
That last lap, Kyle Busch had the 2nd fastest lap. Joey Logano had the 1st fastest lap. They're running 1 and 2. The difference wasn't enough to make a difference in the gap. It's still 2 seconds.
And I know people at home are saying, why are you running that fast? Because he's in his rhythm. He's in the rhythm that he's comfortable with. A lot of times when you try to back up and slow down, you actually make mistakes. I don't like to see a driver get really slow. I like to see him run the line that he's comfortable with, use the throttle, use the brake, just like you've done all race long. You don't have to be crazy aggressive, but don't throw yourself off your rhythm.
Yeah, it's like a golfer who comes to 18 with a 3 or 4 stroke lead. You still have to play that hole like you want to play that hole. If you get off your game and make a mistake, then you've put yourself in that position. Kyle Busch has thousands of laps around Kentucky Speedway. He just needs to run 3 more to be the winner tonight.
3 more laps for Kyle Busch. Why is Joe Gibbs Racing and Penske so good at this track? They've won the 4 previous races. Now it looks like they're in position to win the 5th.
Well, it's a very unique racetrack. There's a tremendous amount of bumps. The angle, banking angle in the corners is very unique. But we heard earlier about the tire combination. I think there's a mix of those 3 things that makes these 2 organizations have an advantage when they come here. One of those 3 factors they know how to adjust to, and it works because all of their drivers show speed.
2 to go. Kyle Busch into 1 and 2. The lead 2.1 seconds over Joey Logano. Joe Gibbs Racing. 1st, 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
See Tony Stewart have his hand out the window, letting the 18 know, passing on the bottom, it'll give you the bottom lane. Anyone who's won a race, Tony Stewart's won a ton of races. He's been in the position the 18 is. He wants to let him know where to run.
47, 23 next to 23 at bottom, coming back no matter what.
1 lap to go for Kyle Busch. After the accident at Daytona in the Xfinity race, a broken leg and a broken foot, he was able to bounce back, win in the Xfinity Series, got a win. 2 weeks back at Sonoma at the road course. Will he get a 2nd win of 2015 coming out of turn number 4? Kyle Busch is going to win at Kentucky.
Awesome job. Awesome job. Adam, you guys are awesome. Right there on the crispy edge all day, pal. Way to go. Yeah, you got it, brother, right there at the end. You better put it up on that crispy edge. That crispy edge. That thing's awesome.
Speaking of awesome, the 18 team tonight, they led 163 of the 267 laps tonight.
You just got to be so impressed with Kyle Busch. Everything he went through after his injury at Daytona, hard rehab, painful rehab. You know, he hated being out of the race car. He's come back, and he's even better. Steve and I talked about it. We knew he's a good race car driver. We know how great he is. But now it seems like mentally he's better. Sometimes you have something taken away from you, you appreciate it more. He's a better race car driver right now because of what he went through.
Third in the Xfinity race last night. And didn't seem as disappointed as we've seen Kyle Busch in interviews past, where when he doesn't win, he's so frustrated.